I saw an ice cream truck on Saturday. I mean, it was busy.
We'll call the order. It's 9:33. We will have the invocation by Rob.
Okay.
Please stand.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that might affect the ridership of the Waccamaw RTA and all of its supporters. And continue to remind us all that what we do here today, all that we accomplish is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you, and for the service of humanity. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we still recite the Pledge of Allegiance in schools, in public schools each morning?
Some they do and some they don't.
No?
Depends on where
Really?
it
I don't,
is.
I thought they did, but I heard you wrong.
There's parts of the country where they do not.
Well, do they have a flag hanging in every classroom?
Probably not.
I don't, from what I recall, I don't think they do anymore.
How about your college?
No, there's no flag.
No flag?
No, out on campus somewhere, but no, not in any of the buildings. No.
Okay.
No, but by law, they have to have something called Constitution Day. So one day of the year, on every campus, someone has to recite the Constitution.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
There you go.
I did the declaration.
Yeah. Boy, you have to learn the
All right.
other.
We'll have the
Yeah.
roll call.
Sorry.
Catherine Angelo.
Here.
Sid Blackwelder.
Here.
Darrell Wyckoff.
Present.
Debbie Gasquet.
Here.
Wilbur James. Lily Jean Johnson.
Here.
Marvin Keene. Joseph Lazara.
Here.
Rob Sheehan.
Here.
Bernard Silverman.
Here.
Ivory Wilson.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay. Acknowledgement of visitors. I don't see any visitors at this time.
Nick is shrinking so much, he may be here, we just have to call out for him.
Okay. We try to do things on time. We were 3 minutes late as it was. Is there any employee recognition today, Brian?
No, but I just wanted to inform the board that we're having our Employee Appreciation Day on June 16th. And that'll be in the back lot, like we've done in the past. We'll do hot dogs and hamburgers and just have a little bit of a picnic and everything out back, and the board members are welcome.
Thank you.
First,
But I'm going to be out of town myself.
Lunchtime?
yeah, first slug of drivers will be through around noon, and then the second set will be around 3:30ish. So we'll be there the whole time between 12 and 6. So come on by.
Do you invite all the drivers, even the part-time drivers? Nice.
Okay. Approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve minutes?
I so move.
Second.
Second. Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
All against? Nay? Any other review on the minutes or so? If none, minutes are approved, stated. Okay. Service and PAC Committee report?
That would be you.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Happily, Brian was able to give us a triennial debrief. I don't know if you want to point out anything specifically about it.
Well, I'm glad you said happily. I have kind of a rundown for those who weren't here last week in my manager's report. So if we want to just wait till then, or I could go through it right now, either way. You just want to wait? Yeah. I have, so I think we can kind of move on. I don't, what else did we talk
We
about?
can come back to it.
Yeah, we come back to that.
We start, well, we start the shuttle, the entertainment shuttle today. That's a nice
Yesterday.
service announcement.
Yeah, I saw it rolling around, that was all.
You saw it?
And
Yeah, I saw it, yeah.
the maps are soon?
Yes, the signs are being installed as we
And
speak. The sandwich boards were given out yesterday.
And did we verify that those showed up on the, that?
Not what Tommy,
So we-
I will,
One of the drivers was telling me that it may not have been on there, so. we just gotta
well, we've
get
got
a
some
couple
other
details
issues
worked
that
out.
Tom's having to work on remotely, so.
I think you, Michelle, or someone was gonna send us, or maybe Miss Lynette was gonna send us the app to read the map.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
that-
no, it's not up yet.
When it's up,
When
we'll
it's
send
up.
it, when it's ready, we'll send it to you.
And my question we raised it at the last meeting, do we have Annunciation? It's the end of May.
Yes, it is the end of May.
Bring out the axe.
We're
in
still-
the event.
We're still working on the
The
on the
speaker.
amplification, no issues with that. So you could pull down music on the tablets and it plays fine, but when you pull down the stop Annunciation, we're having some issues, so.
And they
we're
had
going-
made some of the corrections, but they hadn't made it all the
And I
way
think
through.
they were sending us a different set of speakers,
Okay.
so it's very close. We do have all the geofencing squared away, which is where it's telling the system to announce a stop. So, we're ready to roll as soon as we can yell it
Closest
within the
for
vehicles.
horseshoes.
Do we have any way of letting people on the Entertainment Express know that we connect with fixed routes pretty close, like a short block? I don't know that it would be, I don't know that they would be using the systems, if people would be using both of them.
Well, I
They
know,
aren't close
well, the
together.
driver I spoke to this morning was telling me that there was a family with the system map. So,
So
and
the
they're
system map's-
wondering, I mean, because the entertainment show's not on the system map, so.
No, it just says that it's seasonal or whatever.
Right.
So because we do the separate ones, we didn't want people to think that that was year round.
So we have both the system map and as soon as today, the maps for the entertainment show out there. So, and,
And we're already having to make some modifications this weekend and next weekend due to
yeah, we have
events.
festivals going on, we got,
This weekend in Mass, I was down there last year at this time of year.
Well, this weekend is the salt games and some fun parade.
Oh, I'm thinking of the Carolina
And then next
Festival.
Thursday, so
Next
we're
Thursday
actually
is
having to
music
reroute Thursday morning through end of day Tuesday. Because they won't have the barricades and everything down till Tuesday afternoon.
mm,
And then we can go back into regular
Is
service.
that the music festival? the
Yes,
country
sir.
Music festival? Jeez.
so we can't use 9th and go back north? All right. Well,
We've already, we huddled with Jody yesterday.
Yeah.
After
It gets pretty messy.
Also, we're having a lot of, I see a lot of these J1 students now.
Yeah, we had several hundred of them yesterday. One sponsor alone has 500 kids. And she says it's gonna still be this year between 4,000 and 5,000 kids.
I didn't realize it was that big, 4 and 5
And we
thousand.
start the first one in Surfside tomorrow. We'll be doing orientation in Surfside.
Wow.
And as a sort of a related topic, we've been working with the county on different pickup locations for evacuation, if we're just evacuating Zone A, to get closer to the beach. So we're doing Ocean Boulevard and points closer to, is it Ocean Boulevard up in North Myrtle Beach or Ocean Ave or?
No, Ocean Boulevard.
Ocean Boulevard. So we're getting closer to, you know, where the folks are who are being evacuated, just for Zone A. If it goes to Zone A and B, we'll pop back to 17 business.
They're saying more storms, but I view all of that as sort of hocus pocus anyways. It's starting.
They go,
Well,
they
then-
go on and interrupt the station, especially in the middle of a movie, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. They interrupt it with all this loud noise, and the sound of the movie turns off, and then you don't know what they're talking about, and they say it's severe, and go and get shelter, and we don't get 2 drops of rain. And they've been doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have a large viewing area.
Yeah. We had, the other thing we had in service and pack is we had Michelle's announcement of drumming up some money. If people were not at that meeting, that's a good story.
Yeah, well,
We're gonna
so
put
you
her on
want
some
to
kind of a
fill her in on
law.
that again real quick?
I like the way you think.
The elevator speech version of it?
Yeah.
Just quickly, we've partnered with Britain Resorts, and they are providing passes, or fare passes, for all of their employees, and a $200 bonus if they're there 90 days or more. So they're buying passes for us.
Anybody who wasn't here?
Yes, thank you. And in addition to that,
And so they purchased, what, $2,000 worth?
$1,000 for the first start, and then they're doing the $10 passes, so that will ensure even the 16s, the expresses.
Take a picture of the $1,000 bill and put it on your wall.
Thank you.
The first $1,000 she's made.
But what's the $10 pass, like a debit card thing?
It's a $10 value pass, so the value passes are good on either the expresses or the standard fixed routes versus the multi-ride passes that are only good for the fixed routes. So we thought that this was the best way for you to go, and basically we'll give 5 free rides for the anyone on the 16 Express.
So this is just a recruitment tool for
Right.
Britain Resorts. They're trying to get more, better employees.
in
and-
multiple
And
departments.
so they have a similar arrangement with Williamsburg Transit, and they came to us, mostly about Georgetown County, but then we also talked about east of Conway and other areas, so we'll be interested to see how it affects our
I think we should
fare box recovery.
Yeah.
put her on commission if it works.
Yeah.
Can we track the use of the passes over just normal fare paying? Say there's an increase in ridership, does our system allow us, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
I mean, we know how many times they're being used.
But the drivers have a feel, I guess, right?
Well, I mean, I can tell you how many $10 passes have been used to pay fare,
Okay,
but I can't tell you which $10 passes,
That's
or,
okay.
if it's an employee of, one of the.
yeah, okay.
So then the other thing was on advertising
On
sales.
advertising, we have a client,
Oh,
who is a big.
Calm down,
One
calm
full
down.
route, and probably a virtual, if not a second route, that, it's just the cost of the route, so we're trying to secure the third quote for them because it is a state agency that has to have three quotes. We're the sole source, however, we're going to local route companies to be able to find it.
And so who is it?
I'd rather, until
Okay.
the signature is signed.
That might scare them off.
Incognito, like the.
I don't
Anybody
ever
watching
wanna
this?
count I don't
Anybody
ever wanna
watching
count the eggs before they hatch. I want that dotted line to be signed.
It's like
That
chocolate.
was a
The
superstition.
colors of the bus, which we have yet to see.
Yes, those
Those
are
are
coming soon to a theater near you.
How
oh, I
about
can't wait.
how about the passes at Piggly Wiggly, they're available now?
They're available in Andrews and in Georgetown. We have sent emails to Publix and to Walgreens.
Uh-huh.
I've not heard back, except for just verbally speak with someone who's gonna pass it up the food chain. And looking at others, perhaps even the Walmart neighborhood stores, just trying to think
Food
of.
Lion. Have you tried Food Lion? They have that business desk that is right there at the front. I know people go in there to buy money orders
Lottery
and
tickets.
things like that.
Sure.
Yeah, and most grocery stores have those kinds of centers, that's where we're selling like the Piggly Wigglies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so.
You know, if you were in North Myrtle Beach, Publix is dying to get in with any organization or any authority to help out, to do whatever they can. They tell in North Myrtle Beach, they tell their employees to ride the Coast RTA bus.
Wonderful.
It doesn't go there.
Except it doesn't come.
It doesn't go
I know,
there.
Well, it goes to
that's
some of them,
another
it goes to
thing that I was gonna
Carolina
bring
Forest.
up for discussion, where are we at?
But I mean, that is wonderful. They want to be really involved, they really do.
And the problem with
We
selling.
do have it in Pawleys Island, though.
Yeah, right.
So the problem with selling passes at the transfer station is the cash handling.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but what is the problem, Ronnie?
I just don't think that drivers are allowed to handle cash, and I think there'd be a security problem.
Oh,
That's
well,
right,
Yeah,
that's
well,
right. We don't need that.
Well, we don't want that. I mean, we want them to buy the pass from Publix and.
So-
It's better they buy a pass with somebody standing behind a counter.
Right.
You know?
And so we've had conversations with other grocery stores, it's just we've gotten traction with Piggly Wiggly, and we'll keep going after the others.
Right, yes.
And the drivers sell a day pass, is that right? They can sell a day pass.
They were able to, I don't know how many actually have them on their bodies, but
can sell a stored value, can't you? You can put $20 in the fare box and get a stored value card.
Yeah, you get your change card with that.
Yeah, I see people doing that a
The
lot.
money would be put in the fare box, right?
Right.
And then I highly encourage the students to understand that they're gonna get their change back whenever I'm doing the travel training.
Yeah, I ran into that yesterday. In fact, one of the drivers gave somebody with a 20 a courtesy card, because there was nothing else, and I made change for a couple of people. Because they didn't understand they wouldn't get money back.
And maybe they just haven't gone through our orientation yet.
No, they'll understand it quickly, though. They're smart, these kids.
Oh, yeah, and even yesterday afternoon, we had a dozen of them in here. They were complimentary of the system.
I'm amazed how they come to this country, and I see them in North Myrtle Beach, and they're from Ukraine, different places, and they're working the cash register, when we have people in this country that can't work the cash register. And if we go to another country, do you know how long it takes you? 2 weeks to figure out their money, and by that time you've gone home.
If you go to any European country, everybody my age or younger knows English
Oh,
better
they
than I
speak
do.
English. In South America also, we had 30 years ago in Rio, everyone spoke English.
Right.
Did you want to take Joe's question about North Myrtle now, or wrap your manager's report?
Well, I mean, we did have that conversation during PAC as well, might have been this last PAC, but we do need to get up there and continue the conversation. And we haven't scheduled anything yet. We want to go talk to the chamber. We want to go back and maybe do a state, update on Coast RTA to the council. I think the next step though is going to be doing a study up there and trying to figure out what we can do. The problem with North Myrtle Beach is to do it right. You're talking about, I don't know, a $600,000 to $750,000 increase in operating costs. And we just don't have that kind of money.
But the bottom line is, we gotta get up, I'll drive. We gotta get up there and talk to them. I'll drive you up.
And that was the point. So
Yeah.
we'll I'll let you know, we'll get something scheduled here very soon and I'll send an email to the board, let you know when I'm getting up there.
That'd be great.
She's on Facebook, you ought to go in and ask her.
Kitty, is the mayor running again, or is this her last?
She's running.
She's running again.
I heard she was.
We got a new police chief coming out there too.
Yeah.
North Myrtle. That's for sure.
In North Myrtle or Myrtle?
Yeah, the North
Oh,
Myrtle.
North Myrtle.
Oh, he's a
Retiring.
buddy of the business administrator, they're both from Florida, he brought him up.
His wife's a nurse at Grand Strand. And
Really?
that's her,
See that? We know all this inside, does it help us?
The wife's a good nurse.
Well, I got time since I'm not going to China, so I'll drive you up.
Okay.
You can go to China, you may as well go to North Myrtle Beach.
So that's probably it for service and PAC, right?
They have as much money as China.
That's all I remember.
So we're not going back anymore to service and back at this time?
Was there anything else?
I know you talked, I think at the last meeting about we are in need of mechanics. Is that
Yeah.
going away yet?
Well, I get labor on both sides of the house, operating and mechanics has been hard to come by. I think we're set, at least for drivers, I think we're okay for the summer. We might run a little high on overtime, but I don't expect it to be as bad or as previous years. I think we're in pretty good shape. But we are operating one mechanic down, so it's been sort of a combination of sending some stuff out. Sending stuff out for us is typically more expensive and it takes longer. We don't get first dibs when we go to mechanics. And so we've talked about a number of strategies. One would be hiring, I guess the biggest issue for finding mechanics is the pay rate. We had one candidate from a local dealership who was making $2 more an hour at the dealership than what we could pay, so.
And we couldn't up the pay?
Well,
Well, you'd have to up the whole.
We could, but, that's,
You have to give it to
and
everybody else.
so we just need to think about that.
But when
I don't know that I have a
they hired
solution just yet.
teachers, 20 years ago, they started a certain rate, and then the new teachers that they hired, this is just an example, they're hiring it higher than the old teachers making at the time,
Yeah,
so,
even through natural
Yes.
increases.
That's what happened at the university. We had to do major decompression funding to bring everybody up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're headed for that trying to increase our current staff a little bit, but what we're gonna do is ask them to get certifications and more expertise.
Yeah, raise the professionals.
So it's gonna be a combination.
You know, the cost of contracting, when we send stuff out, are we, besides the hourly rate of pay, I mean, we were at 20 or 22% of fringe on top of what their salary is? I assume we factor that in, we decide is it cheaper in-house or out-of-house? With the
Yeah.
pension fund and all that, it's probably over 20%, I would guess.
Well, it's higher than that, really.
What is it your average? Do you know?
Well, I mean, it's a
Fringe
normal
rate?
retail markup, it's probably more like 40%.
35%. When you say it's possible to go out, but you are considering that 35% as you make that statement?
It's less about cost and more about time.
Okay.
If we don't have the time or the staff to, get something that's out there, then we don't really have a choice, we send it out. So,
Gotcha.
I think in general, we're doing most of everything in-house that we can.
We
We're
can.
doing another engine replacement out there, and
That's the Dallas bus out there now?
then we have one bus that's down right now with the transmission issue that's a warranty, so we're pursuing, because we just put the transmission in it, so that we're sending that out. to get it. They're gonna fix it.
Are you gonna cover the contract update in your manager's report, signage?
Yes.
35%.
You talk about your
Yeah, we're
buses the
totally
way I
screwing
talk
them.
about my kids. Yeah, I got one down, I'm busy on it.
Well, they are our bread and
I
butter,
like your
Seems
job.
high.
and they are so important to us
Mhm.
in order to do what we do.
What seems high?
So we don't
Fringe rate.
total a whole lot of them.
40% for mechanics. You've got.
We budget as best we can, but if something's broken, we gotta fix it.
It's not a pension, it's state
So,
pension.
and things,
Really.
we got some interesting information from Dallas on,
11% alone, just-
what kind of increase or decreases in cost they saw when they replaced the bus. And it's pretty substantial. I mean, their cost per mile is way higher than ours, like $2.90 a mile. Ours is, the 130 to 140 range. There's a lot of reasons for that, but, they saw a 50% decrease.
And are the buses that they're talking about having swapped out the ones we brought in?
Yes.
So
So there is
we
some,
sort of bought a problem.
some align, well, no, I don't think there's.
I know we needed to do what we did, I'm not criticizing it, I'm just saying, if we're on the low end, then when we swap those out, we should anticipate seeing some cost
Yes.
savings.
Could they switch
Well,
to a
but I'm
different fuel source?
switching out even older buses, so it should be better.
Could they switch to get a 50% decrease if they switch to CNG?
Yeah, I don't think that really had much to do with the change. I mean, it's just operating newer equipment. You go from a 14-year-old bus to a baby bus, and it's a lot cheaper. So, what that just means for us is that we should, with 4 of our 15 buses being brand new beginning in July, we should see a slight decrease, or a modest decrease in operating costs. So, and that's gonna be important.
Are we gonna decrease the amount of buses that we have on hold? Like get rid of them?
You mean the spare ratio?
Yes.
No, it's gonna be about the same. We contemplated taking 5 of the Gilligs out with these 4, but there's one Gillig that has additional equity in it, so we're gonna run it until it runs out of equity. So and that's 018, which is actually been a pretty good bus.
Well, what I mean, I'm talking about the buses that we have on hold right now, that have been held for a period of time.
I don't know that I understand
Well,
on hold.
aren't there, well, what I'm saying on hold is they're not usable.
Well,
We're held in.
everything back there right now is, aside from the internationals, is in use. And so-
Are you using?
there's a few that are down from mechanical issues, but there's nothing back there that's not in use anymore.
Well, that's good. That's what I'm.
Or
I mean, there's spares, there's buses we don't use as much as others. I'm sorry?
You've gotten rid of a lot of
Yeah.
buses, haven't you?
No, we're down to 32 vehicles
Yeah.
total. And when these 4 come in, 4 will go out, so we won't, the spare ratio won't change.
And what about, what are you gonna use for a spare for the 2 trolleys out there on the Indian Express, that white trolley?
Yeah, that's the spare for it. I think given the state of our funding and having some money available for bus procurement, we might replace that green and white trolley. Because it's getting, it's hard to find parts for, it's kind of similar to an Opus. You just gotta find the federal side of that one, which is, it's out there. I mean, we use 5339, I suppose, but it's not, it's on the list, it's not at the top of the list yet.
Do you want to modify the agenda since Marvin's not here and do financial after your report?
That's up to you. I mean,
It's up to Joe.
Well,
we can, I
he's
don't,
not here, I
We're
mean,
killing time.
can we see if I have an ETA?
Yeah.
either that or we just go right into general manager.
I'm just thinking of things to talk to him about until Marvin shows up. Yeah.
We could go to the manager's report. Can we do that?
Sure.
Yeah, yes, please. So my agenda today is talk to a little bit about triennial. I've kind of condensed that conversation. We won't talk about it in as much detail as we did last week. Status of projects, fleet update, we've already started that discussion. And then I did let the finance committee know about this overstating of local funding in the budget right now. And just wanted to, I don't have all the answers yet, but I just want to let you know kind of what's going into that thought process and some of the budget considerations. I have a new project listing. I handed this out last week, but I've since added a couple projects and put numbers on there for you, Dr. Sheen.
Oh, I'm so happy.
And so I won't go through this project by project at this point, but
It's the 1-page thing.
it's 1 page, front and back. I think the only other step to go with this project listing is to sort of tie projects together. What project needs to happen before this project happens and that type of thing. We might do that with the numbering, we might do that with color coding, I don't know. Or just in the notes. But this is a pretty good list of everything that we have going right now. Some of the highlights here, the bus stop designation program, I have scope and fee from AECom coming tomorrow. So we should be in, get that negotiated here within the next couple of weeks and get them started.
And what is scope and fee? Do they come here actually and discuss it with you, or?
But we've already had a call with them on that, so we've kind of talked about the details of, what we're trying to accomplish with the project. So this is their take on everything that they have to do in order to complete the project as well as cost.
And then you'll look at that and decide if that's what you want.
I would imagine there'll be a significant amount of tweaking.
Right.
There's obviously budget considerations and maybe pushing some things and and moving some things up.
So following scope and fee, that's when the price is negotiated.
And that's when we'll negotiate price. And the pricing is gonna be, they've agreed in principle that we'll do some sort of combination where they'll charge us per bus stop, and there'll be 2 price levels. There'll be an easy bus stop and there'll be a hard bus stop, basically. This is pushing some of the risk onto AECom, so that, they get some amount for, just putting a pole in the ground, for the ones that, don't have any easements or, anything like that. And then there'll be lump sum amounts for the planning side, getting our geocoded database, photographs, doing the policy and procedure work and that sort of thing. So we'll just pay them, based on a percent complete type of thing. So it'll be two ways to pay for the project.
Do we have any total amount of signs we're anticipating?
Well, I think, all told, we're in the neighborhood of 300 to 350 signs, roughly. I don't know that, I think it'll take us 3 years to get through them all. easily.
Who's your point person here in the authority for managing this project?
We haven't really determined that yet. I think at this point it's me and Kevin, and we'll probably find one other person, possibly John Glover, to sort of be our legs and eyes on the ground, to kind of follow up on things.
I'm still losing sleep over the permit processes. I'm sure, there'll be as many processes as there are entities we're working with.
Yeah, and it's not a one-to-one relationship by stop. I mean, I think there are several permits that can be obtained for groups of stops, along a segment of a particular roadway and that type of thing. So, it really depends on, where we want to place the sign, if it's going to be in road right away or if it's going to be off the road right away. Off the road right away obviously means you're dealing with whoever that property owner is. We want to avoid that as best we can. I think there'll be some time where we're looking at tweaking stop locations. The stop locations you might see on the app are not necessarily where those things are going to land based on who we're talking to and where that conversation's going. Case in point, the issues on Oak Street with Representative Clemens' office, those types of things. So those are all forces at which, we'll massage where these things are landing.
I was watching people put up a telephone pole at 501 and Myrtle Ridge, I guess it was, or Myrtle Trace, whichever is the one by Gardner Lacey. And they had to kind of block 501 off, or a couple of lanes there to get this, this pole put up. Will we have to also be blocking traffic during the period of time where the signage is going up?
One of the very important considerations in the evaluation was their safety plan and how they were dealing with that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're requiring a safety plan for that exact reason, doing traffic control and those types of things around these work sites. And that was one of the main reasons why AECom got the job, is because they had a very nice, concise plan on how they're going to approach that. And each stop is going to be different. So another reason why you might want to do it in groups.
That new law has gone in, is it pull over, is that what it's called? You have to pull over if they're working on the road or whatever, and you get ticketed between $300 and $500. So it's a lot of, that's why they cut it off, the road.
Well, and all that gets coordinated with police and
With public safety,
with public works and all that. So
They also have
we stressed
a sign on the other opposite side of the street for that same place.
in most instances, but not always. Sometimes they're, and you're not necessarily installing those two at the same time. Because that's, you gotta pick up your traffic control and move it to the other side of the road, so.
You might be
It's,
better off just going down one
yeah.
side.
One way.
It's a pretty complicated process,
I'm sure.
so, and I'm pretty comfortable
Well,
that,
that's why we had problems.
This group
in the
is gonna
past
be able to
trying
do it.
something like
Does the
this.
scope of work include any recommendation where in the future there should be shelters placed?
not
Right-of-way
really,
restrictions?
because that's a data-driven exercise. Once we have these locations,
But also roadside versus private property comes in, how much more square footage you may need, but.
we will get an assessment of the space at that location.
Perfect.
So,
Good.
we'll introduce street furniture as it becomes
Good.
necessary, as we call it in the business, street furniture.
Now, let me ask you a question. What's the name of this document, in case I want to refer to it? Does it have a name?
The project listing, but you're right, it could use a title.
Sheehan list. Or the Bernie list.
You want the Sheehan list?
No, but, like, are you gonna update this,
Yes.
like monthly, weekly, or not weekly, of course?
You skipped over
periodic?
finance, we'll come back.
I think it's with the goal of updating it monthly. It's really a tool for you all to see progress on things that, basically something you all asked for
Yeah, I think it's a great
a
idea.
while back, and it's gonna keep me organized.
Right, there's time clocks on this, I don't see it, but.
Payroll,
Company.
so we talked about that yesterday. We gotta get our RFP
Yeah,
out
we
on
get
the
cracking, and we'll do an RFP for it.
We're ready.
and move it.
Yes, we're gonna outsource payroll.
Yeah, no, we talked about that.
So-
Good idea.
We're waiting for the triennial, it's done, so we'll do that. Kevin's not here the balance of the week, next week, I'll get on him and get him
And
started.
that RFP will include an interview with the top 3 candidates and let them come in and give us their bells and whistles. And we want it completely automated. We want our employees to be able to write to a, basically a web page and put in their time and all that. So it should be a lot nicer. But that project belongs on the list, so made a note to do so.
And how about the succession plan? Now, that's not really your plan, that's the board's plan, so that would not be on here. I'm just trying to.
Well, that's number 6, business continuity safety plan.
Okay, good. Good. And,
Ryan went good this morning.
yeah. And would it not be an idea to instead of doing it by numbers and your numbers by completion date? I mean,
No, they're in order by department. You got admin, capital, external, grant, marketing, ops, planning. So, yeah, I might want to play around with the numbering system.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
We might go to like a 3-digit numbering system, and the first digit will tell you what department.
Yeah,
Something like that.
What about the payroll? What did you say the number is there?
Payroll is not on here. It needs to be added. I did not claim that this was an exhaustive list.
Okay, I just asked.
Ryan left it off on purpose so that he'd have
I
something.
gotta throw Bernie a bone every once in a while. So.
No, I think you're doing great.
If it were perfect, we'd anger the gods.
I'm gonna look it over though, but.
Please do. And the dates in here were done pretty quickly, so if you think I'm crazy on the dates or I'm wrong, please let me know.
Yeah, you're probably.
The water heater, does that still need a container built around it? The water heater down at the,
Yeah, we're gonna put in a tankless.
that's what I was gonna suggest, is much less
How
to
much do
hide.
they run, those tankless?
Well, and you're right, that's not on here, because I wanted to talk about that. We're doing, if you look at the Ivory Wilson Transit Center list,
$1,600 for a tankless water heater, according to my former.
yeah, we don't need one that expensive, because it's just going to that sink.
Oh,
We don't do hot water in the other sink, so, let's see here. Bathroom fixes, front door transit plate, mural fixes, bathroom fixes, mural, front door transition plate, steps, porch treads, water heater, should be done here in the
You
next
still have
couple
time to
weeks.
grow hair for the new mural.
So we're hoping to get that squared away here in early June. You see, they're all June 15th.
Brian, will
June
you
15th.
revise this on
It has to be
completion
grown by
dates?
June 15th.
If there's ever a slippage, some annotation that if you put in a new date, it
Yeah.
slipped 6 months, I'd like to know that it changed,
Maybe a color or.
Yeah.
color or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because most of them won't, most of them are good, but if it did,
Right.
it'd draw our attention to
Yep.
slippage.
Are you sure these are gonna be done by 6:15?
No.
I think we need to look this over and give Brian a little more leeway. I think it's too
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, really?
Look, we have.
Yellow,
we
green,
have-
and red
We have estimates
shading.
for all those
Actually,
jobs.
it's not
Seen that
like
before, yeah.
Contacted
It
the
works
contractor.
Yep.
said
It's
get
gonna
out
start
there and do it,
sliding into
so
the
I'm
yellow
pretty
and then
confident
The
they'll
drainage
do
is,
I
Yeah.
think the
Yeah.
LCH
And you
does.
So
realize
the,
we're doing this because we're on video.
No, we're doing this because we're on your side.
So, yeah, you should start seeing those here in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
And if it changes, I'll let you know.
Yeah, that's really great. Thank you very much for this.
So then, bus stop annunciation, we already talked about, we have it set up, it's ready to roll out, we just gotta get the amplification problem solved. I know that there's been some kickback with ride systems, they're not exactly sure what the problem is. But we're getting a new system sent to us, it's probably here, to try it and see where we're going. As soon as we get that problem corrected, we can launch the program. And then we did start the entertainment shuttle yesterday.
We're not charging a fare yet.
No, but unless we can find some sponsors of that service, there'll be a fare on it next year.
That's good, that's good.
So-
I think people will be happy to pay a fare.
Well, and we
I
gotta
paid
think about
years
what that
ago, you know.
is. And we'll have to do a public involvement, which is a really hard public involvement thing to do because, maybe we'll do that at the end of the summer,
Yeah, those people will be gone.
because they'll be gone. We'll see.
Well, we
I think
did
we also need
find
to
last
survey.
summer that a significant size of the readership were worker bees. I mean, those people will perhaps still be here. They're the ones I worry most that we don't want
Yeah,
to.
a lot of them are Jay, a lot of them are the students.
Right.
Well,
So
maybe
they go
they
to work.
can, maybe they can be
So-
given a pass, maybe they can be given a pass. But,
We'll figure something out.
But, you mean you're gonna have a survey done to see if people will pay the money? Is that what
No,
you're saying?
no, FTA requires a public involvement process if you're changing fares.
I see, I
In
see.
lieu of a fair increase, say the aquarium or Ripley's will give us, how much money will we need from resorts or aquarium?
Well, this year we went
Preclude
after
a-
25,000.
How many?
25,000,
So
which is.
three of these
15%
attractions
of the
will give us
operating cost.
25,000. How much will we need to avoid charging a fare? How much you want to get?
25,000.
I cannot believe those places when, instead of
Well,
hassling with the
it's
fare.
timing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
You
I
hit
mean,
them
that's the
immediately
issue.
in the fall
But,
with
You know,
the budget
Britain
planning.
seemed to think that it was a reasonable request, and
Timing.
but we need to
Isn't-
get,
isn't
we
most-
need to get somebody,
isn't most
Yeah,
sort of
free
break the
Wouldn't it be
ice.
a lot easier on
the
us
year
and to
before,
the
in
public,
January, they start all over again?
if sponsors would give us the 25,000 to avoid the whole dollar fare or something?
yeah, I mean, charging a fare on that really changes the dynamic of how you're operating. It
Yeah.
slows it
For
down.
the fourth quarter.
That's what I'm saying, it'd be nice if several of those larger
That's what we
places,
just-
I know, we
if
have.
you only
Can
need
can
20.
we do one conversation, please?
Yeah, just get
I would like us to really try to beat the bushes, because if you only need $25,000, get enough of the resorts or the attractions to give us the 25 to avoid getting this fare collection thing. It's gonna slow down the stops, I don't know. I thought you were gonna say a lot more than 25K. If you only need 25K, I can't believe they won't.
Well, I mean, as we continue to purport it as a prepaid fare, that's what we need, obviously.
Yeah.
Given our budget situation, we'd use more, but,
Yeah. I really
did we
like
get
it.
any nibbles? I mean, what did Ripley say? I mean, we're going, some of them have been interested in advertising on the vehicle. So there's another way to
Okay.
kind of recruit. some
I would like
of
to
the
exhaust all avenues to avoid the fare collection for a number of negative consequences by doing, it. Besides the publicity, you slow stuff down.
It's a ridership.
Yeah.
Boom for us.
Isn't that how we got the first amount of money by advertising on the bus? The first year?
That was before my time.
Does anybody remember that?
That was 6 years ago.
Yeah, it was.
I don't
and it
remember
was-
that.
And we didn't advertise on, did we advertise? No?
We got it
Well, we got
separate,
some, we
60
got money from
grand.
someone.
No, we got it separate, they gave us like 60 grand to operate it the first
That was
couple of
3
go
years ago.
rounds.
Well,
Yeah. and
we
it was
got
that from the
money-
city?
Yes.
That was from the city, yeah.
We got, I
Yeah.
thought from Broadway at the beach, when we first started, the first year, I thought we either got advertised on the bus or we got
Well,
money.
they did a full route on the regular bus, not on the shuttle.
Oh, okay.
Well, if Michelle is saying that it's a timing thing, and the mayor of Conway said it was a timing thing about that, maybe we just need to decide, in October or whatever month it is.
As soon as this is
That was
over,
the
we need to
suggestion.
have the data so that we can go to the fourth quarter while they're doing budget planning.
Did they ever tell you what the timing is? They always say it's a timing thing.
Fourth quarter, October, November, December,
Right.
instead of going in March, April, May.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So we'll do that.
That shuttle, if possible, inroad into North Myrtle Beach, if we ran just a shuttle up there that was subsidized.
That is a
but-
potential first step.
Yeah.
North Myrtle
It
Beach.
seems
It's
like
not the
it'd
same
be-
shuttle, it'd be a different vehicle. You wouldn't,
Well, yeah, but I mean, that concept
Yeah.
would be an
I think that would work.
easier
Well,
in.
I mean,
than,
Ocean Boulevard was open all the way from.
At least to have a
Myrtle
presence
Beach.
initially. If that were successful, that would, I think, go a long way to
I do
helping
too.
your cause.
well, we'll bring that up when we go talk to them.
Is there another time period that the vendors would also like to see an entertainment show? I'm hearing what you say about fourth quarter, but what if they were interested in a 2-week Christmas run? And I don't know that we've asked that question.
We have, actually.
Okay.
And gotten mixed reviews. There has been some that said the shoulder seasons would be nice, or certain weekends in the shoulder season, some of the festival weekends. But we didn't get a lot of excitement. about it. And I don't know if it's because it's not viewed as an issue, or,
Yeah.
you know, maybe it's a little easier to get lodging close to some of these venues in those time frames, so it's less pressure on getting around, I don't know.
Yeah, and then like we were.
Parking is certainly less of an issue in the shoulder seasons and, you know, holiday seasons and stuff.
Even with the shopping trolley, like they do in Florida, where the driver's dressed like Santa, and take them away. So it's just finding the right.
Well, isn't Broadway the beach controlled by Bird and Travel?
It's managed by them, but not.
Yeah, they don't own it anymore, but they still manage it, as our
They
understanding.
don't own it anymore?
No, sir.
Who owns it? Because they used to manage River Hills Golf Course,
It's
and
owned-
the Chinese own
Owned
it
by
now.
foreign interests?
Chinese.
That's a good guess, I don't know.
Yeah, because
That was a
most
big
of the,
deal, but that B and C kept the retainer of management.
Probably need to go through the ownership and they should be able to give us some money.
You would think.
If
I don't know who to call, though.
It's benefiting them.
well, you call Burroughs and Chapin and find
Burroughs
out
and
who,
Chapin,
Yeah, they're managers, so they would
Who
have
owns
budget.
it?
Yeah.
but most of these things were bought up by the Chinese.
23 golf courses.
Well, ours, yeah, but Burroughs and
So-
Chapin managed it before that, but now they don't manage it
I'm
anymore.
gonna add a 2018 entertainment shuttle project.
Yeah, the real issue is getting your calendar blocked in such a way that fall doesn't come and go, you know, without following up on it, or yours or someone's. That's,
The nice thing is, the next review comes from the state in spring of 19.
so you, yes,
Hard
we're
to
not.
find for a while.
We got some time.
Dealing with that.
Yeah, that's good, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So that's a good segue into triennial. I'll go through these quickly. We got high marks. If you think about FTA's, the aspects of a transit systems, the transit system that's most important to FTA, it's how are you handling their assets, which they, you know, that's really what they're into, is, you know, the capital side of things. Do you have any issues with Title VI or DVE? And then how are you maintaining their assets? So we got high marks on these 4 items, which are very important to FTA. Procurement documentation was spot on. They really praised Kevin and his work on maintaining the procurements. We actually had to do the ICE, the independent cost estimate for the buses for Comet. And it was their procurement, and they got hammered on not having that in their triennial. Title VI outreach, they praised the efforts of Michelle and Kevin on getting information out to challenged populations, low income, minority. Drug and alcohol vendor monitoring got really high marks, so Pam's doing a good job, I think, from that perspective. And they had to dig deep to find any findings under maintenance, which is really nice because that was an enhanced review module. And the guy was especially impressed by Tom's lockout tagout procedures, which is a safety mechanism when a mechanic is working on a vehicle, or if they're working on something in a facility like air conditioning unit or something like that, they lock it out so that nobody else comes along and turns it on or tries to operate that piece of machinery while they're working on it. It seems kind of logical to me, and it's definitely, I've heard of it before, but the guy said he hadn't seen it in a transit operation, so that's pretty good. It's a pretty good deal. What do I have? 2 of these. Quick development of slides. No findings in, these were really important to me. No findings in technical capacity, satisfactory continuing control, or planning and program of projects. You know, they're saying that management here now has a good handle on what we're supposed to be doing. So that's a really good thing to have. We did have some findings, probably hit hardest in ADA, those related mostly to advertising rules, our no-show policy, which is if someone is abusing the system by not showing up to their appointments, you know, there's all sorts of data you have to collect, and if it becomes a problem, you have the option of suspending them from service. Obviously, you don't want to do that, so they wanted a little bit more controls on how and when we're doing that. We have yet to suspend anybody from our paratransit system, so we don't really have a huge issue. We just got to have the policy in place. And then data collection, mostly related to assessing our capacity, which intuitively, going at 0.87, 0.9 passengers per hour, we don't have any capacity constraints in our paratransit system. But the point was made to us, how do you know? And so there are some math things that you have to do related to that we haven't done. We're not entering information back into Route Match in order to collect some of that information. So we're gonna have to go back and do some of that just to test. And this one was really the biggest sticking point that I had, because they wanted us to start doing it moving forward. And I had two problems with that. One, it has the possibility of delaying getting a closeout letter for our triennial, because we have to wait 3 months because we're collecting paratransit data. And two, we'd be fine if we did, for some reason, find a capacity constraint, that could delay it even further, but we'd be finding it on a FY17 service as opposed to something during the review period, which was FY14, 15, and 16. So the drawback to that is that, look, if you're going to make that a finding, you got to tell me to go back and collect the data. We have every manifest out there, and we can go back and develop a procedure to start collecting this moving forward as well.
They agree to that?
Haven't seen the draft report yet, but hopefully they will. Capacity, there's 2 points I want to make about capacity constraint. One is they're looking at, it's not necessarily are there enough seats in the vehicles. They're looking at testing whether or not we've picked them up within their window. There's a plus or minus 30 minutes on their appointment time that you have to pick them up in, or it's considered a missed trip, whether you transport the individual or not. And then the second piece, so we don't really have I don't think we've missed very many, if any, but we don't have the documentation to back that up. And then the second thing is length of trip, how long they're on the vehicle. And our policy is like, it can't be any more than 150% of what it would take on the transit system to make that trip. And so there's some math involved in that, and trying to assess that. So we got to figure that out. And that's probably going to be the heaviest lift of all these findings.
Is the measurement when you pick them up or when you got them to the destination?
Well,
plus or minus?
no, it's picking them up.
It's like more important that you get them where they need to be.
Well, yes, but if you're not, if you're picking up somebody 30 minutes later than their pickup time, you're probably not getting them there. And then if you're picking them up 30 minutes early, then you're getting them to.
Well, that's like the airlines, you build in an hour. Yeah, okay, I got you.
So it's, the biggest issue in ADA, you don't really have an issue in ADA unless you have a complaint. And so, someone's got to, and you could do everything perfect and still get a complaint.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest issue. And FTA is not going to get really involved unless you have a complaint.
And we have no complaint?
Not major ones. We've had some late trips and things like that, and but it's not. I don't think they've been that angry about it, and it's not something that happens with really.
To our knowledge, we have no one who is abusing the system.
I don't think so. Title VI relates mostly to service standards, and this one really isn't an issue. It really relates to how you're distributing your equipment through the system. Basically, you can't put the good buses in one neighborhood all the time and the bad buses in another neighborhood the other time. And we, all our buses are kind of crappy, so it doesn't really matter.
I thought you were going to say good.
It's not what you said when you suggested we.
But it's going to be really important, and this is really important because the drivers are going to have to understand this, is that those new buses have to be distributed throughout the system on a regular basis. And that's what I've said in the past, where Big Boy Transit allows maintenance to assign the buses. And so the finding is that we don't have a plan in place for distributing equipment through the system. And so that's something we need to have anyway. It becomes really important when the new buses come. So that one's pretty good. DBEs, we just got a DBE review, so there's a few there that, we've seen the draft report of that. And this is disadvantaged business enterprises. This has everything to do with how we're doing contracting and whether or not we have race-conscious goals or non-race-conscious goals and all this crap. That is, I don't really understand some of the terminology actually. But the findings that we've had are basically.
Crap is not part of this.
No, that's not a technical term. The issue is, we have been trying really, really hard to engage disadvantaged business enterprises. Nobody's disputing that at all. Really where the issues are is how we're reporting it and then goal calculation. And the goal right now is a 1% goal, which really is pretty measly. We'd love for it to be higher. And the problems with the goal calculation really relate to how many federal dollars that are coming into the operation that actually have a chance of being contracted out to a DBE. We've been using total federal dollars. All right, so that means that our denominator is a lot bigger than it really needs to be. All right, and so if we go through that calculation a little differently and think of it differently, then our goal can go up. And so they just want us to kind of re-examine how we're calculating that goal. Yes, ma'am.
The problem that Barbara, the Conway mayor, was in charge of that when she was here, she found out that the disadvantaged people would not fill out forms in order to get on the list because they didn't want people to know
It is very difficult.
what was going on in their personal life.
It is very difficult to get people signed up to be a DBE,
Right,
yes.
and that was the big problem.
Right. Well, it gets pretty complicated, but the goal calculation can also, there's several steps that you can go through. They give you the option of how far you go down this road. But the next step is looking at the number of DBEs that are actually out there and matching up the field or the expertise of that DBE with what your contracting opportunities are. And that helps you, that actually can reduce your goal because there's not a match. There's not a good nexus between what we're trying to buy and what those people provide.
Right.
So yeah, it's gonna be sitting down in a room, me and Kevin, and trying to figure out those numbers. And so as a result of this, we're gonna probably be changing our DBE goal. The other piece of this is we have this project, the bus stop designation project, where we could get a 50% DBE participation. And so I asked them, so if I know in the future I've got this project that's gonna blow my goal away, should that change my goal? And they were gonna get back to me on that one. So we could be close to 10%. At the end of that project, or even more, just because that project has such a high DBE participation. So it's interesting, but
How do you know it's going to have a high participation?
well, we're required a 20%, and given the scope, most of it is put steins in the ground, and that's as much as 50%.
The signage is a one-time project, so it's not something that you're gonna have recurring.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the signage is not part of that fee. The signage itself we're procuring separately.
No, but I mean, the project is a one-time project.
Right, so it drops off the table.
That's
and
exactly
That's
right.
what
So
Jacob-
you don't
so
wanna
how-
base your goal on that.
Well, that's what for the rec, last week we discussed this, even though we know we're gonna far exceed the current goal, let's don't get too carried away of setting up here, because we're gonna fail the next time, because we're not gonna put poles in the ground for the next 5 years, each year for the next 5 years.
Yes.
So, I don't mind it raising, everything you said is good, particularly, but I wouldn't get too carried away with that, or you're just gonna set yourself for
Agreed.
failure.
And we won't. I just, I think it's a factor though,
Yeah.
on what you're, if we're gonna do that exercise of contracting opportunities, and there's a DBE that does exactly what we're asking for, to me, that sort of naturally raises the goal.
That's true. But if you got your survey of DBEs, like, let's say it's printing materials. If there's only 3 DBEs in our greater area, obviously, but if there's 50, then it's a different story.
Right, and so I'm not sure what that spreadsheet looks like in terms
Yeah.
of how that impacts the
Did a good job
number,
for Kevin.
but it's a pretty lengthy calculation.
Okay.
Well, you have a minimum on the DBE, but it doesn't matter.
There's no maximum, no.
There's no maximum.
I mean, it's really about, I mean, they call it a good faith effort. GFE is throughout this whole documentation on DBE requirements, and we're not getting any findings on our good faith efforts. We're really trying hard. We go to that King Day thing every year. We set up a booth. We talk to, disadvantaged business enterprises. We try to help people get certified, the whole 9 yards. So,
The theme that's underlying all of these is detail.
yeah.
It's procedure, documentation, detail, and I can see why that's a particularly hard thing for a very small agency, because we're not giving you the dollars to set up a whole accounting unit other than managing money, which is important, but you don't have the extra 3 or 4 people who you
Right.
can just could say, well, now they're dedicated to be sure that we get all the data that are collected for all of these various review processes. I think you're sort of stuck in a hard place unless you grow rapidly, which does not seem likely. The best you can do is, patchwork your way along through it.
Well, and as long as we can get the math done, we shouldn't have any issues with meeting the goal. And if we don't meet and that's a good thing, because if you don't meet the goal, there's a whole new set of math calculations you have to do to
Right.
describe why you didn't meet the goal. And so that'll save us some time if we can actually meet the goal.
If the benefit to the community and to coast is to have a high DBE participation, who cares if the goal is 1? I mean, we're still having
And
as
that-
much participation as we can.
And that is an excellent point. The goal is the goal. The more important part of this is the good faith effort, for sure. So yeah, we're not gonna spend a ton of time on this. I just, we've gotta do better on getting the right denominator in that calculation. And then they want us to take another step. I mean, if you heard the exit interview with the DBE reviewers, they went as far as saying you need to find financial institutions that are DBE. There's one in the state in Columbia. I'm not going to a bank in Columbia. I'm not doing that. I mean, it's crazy.
Yep.
So it's a pretty, I understand the importance of the overall topic, and believe me, we try to find DBEs for everything that we do.
Well, you do the best you can.
Yeah,
That's all we can say.
So, thankfully under the triennial, they didn't pick on us too much about DBE or financial, because that all,
Good.
we had the DBE review, we had the financial management oversight, so we got through it pretty well. Charter was a reporting issue, and that was really when they made the transition from Team, which was the old grant management software, to TRAMS. Charter reporting did not come with it. So we're back on that, and that should be closed when we get the draft report.
Good.
EEO goal monitoring, we've been keeping the stats. This is, minorities, women in management positions. We actually meet all our goals from an equal employment opportunity perspective, but we're just not monitoring them like we should. So, the data, actually, our EEO officer is Erica, and Pam is collecting the data and giving it to Erica on a quarterly basis. We just need to close the loop and actually, just look at the numbers. It's just basic. This is how many transit operators we have. This is how many are men. This is how many are women. This is how many are minorities. This, it's just those stats as we move through time. And so we have to close the loop and check that we're still meeting the goal on a regular basis and document it. And that's what the finding is, because we haven't documented it. There were some minor findings in finance and maintenance. I think the 2 finance ones are going to be closed when we get the draft report. They were pretty as I said, they had to dig deep. The maintenance ones really surrounded inspections of fare boxes and cameras on the buses, which is really, IT does it. So we actually have the procedures in IT, but they want an actual inspection sheet in the maintenance plan. That'll be closed by the time we get the draft report. Final report should be done in the end of July, and we should really be able to close these out before the end of the fiscal year.
Good.
So all in all, really good experience with the triennial review.
When did we close out the 2014 triennial?
Last year, 2016. It won't hang on like that, I promise you. And like I said, the only thing that really could threaten that is the ADA statistical information. So I think what I might do is have Mike do that data collection form, and then it'll get done. Fleet update. The trolleys are back to open air. We have 3 Navy buses and 1 Gillig down at the moment. But one of those Navies is in, as I mentioned earlier, is in warranty, getting warranty work done on a transmission. The other one is an engine replacement, which is on the pad right now and should be done within a week or so. New flyers are in production. Tom goes to Alabama next week to do inspections. But at least 3 of them are in the line right now, and the 4th one should be on the line. I think goes into the line this week, if not next week. We are ordering 2 more cutaways, like we have. We've got 53 contract for that, and I'll be using county money to match those dollars. So instead of our regular local money,
53 what? 39?
5310, I think, for those. And then we do have, we're going to use 5339 money to procure 2 to 3 longer cutaways, the 24-footers, 24-passenger ones.
Will those be on fixed routes?
They're for fixed routes during later times,
Yeah.
or Route 1.
Yeah.
We have 2 of them out there right now that are on their last legs, and so we might get 3 and then replace those 2 plus the 0018.
There's really no need for that on the demand response.
Not for the longer ones, no. But this last bullet, I'm thinking about procuring a couple of these smaller vans. This is a Ford Transit on the right side there. That's the picture of it. It's a lighter duty vehicle. It's only 1 wheelchair position and up to 10 people. But that unit right there gets about 18 to 19 miles per gallon, as opposed to one of these cutaways which gets 8 or 9. And so it might be a way, if we are operating at such a low productivity on our paratransit system, to go to that type of equipment. Now, what that will do is increase our fleet from 10 to 12 total vehicles on paratransit, and we might use those, some of the Starcraft, some of the bigger cutaways on our fixed route. You know, like on Route 1, we use it occasionally. And certainly if we do get the DO grant for Bucksport and Loris, we'll start with using cutaways.
Can you explain how, when you can use 5310 versus 5039?
Yeah, 5310 comes to us from 2 different avenues. There's rural 5310, which is administered by the state, and there's urban 5310, which is administered by the MPO.
So my mind has always been rural for 5310, that's not correct.
There's 2.
Okay.
So 5310 coming from GSATs is where we're getting most of those
Okay.
vehicles.
That's good.
Now, we did have a batch of those cutaways that we got from GSATs that came through 5339, but since then, they've given us control over the 5339 urban money. So we had, that's in the budget, and you know, there's like between $500,000 and $600,000 available for capital purchases.
So I should stop thinking 07's urban and 10's rural. That's in my mind what I've been up till right now.
07 is urban.
Yeah.
5311 is rural. Those are operating grants.
That's, okay.
All right, and so these capital dollars come, but the numbers don't change. 5310,
Okay.
5339 have urban and rural
Okay. Wow.
slugs of money.
It's more complicated than healthcare.
Thank you.
When do the workforce,
I think.
when does the workforce grant project start? When would we need?
If we get that grant, it'll start August 15th.
Do we have the vehicles to service that
Yeah.
at this moment? Okay,
Yeah.
and those would be the cutaways?
Well, I think if we get that grant, then that is, I'm gonna get 2 of these. If we don't get the grant, then we might think about it.
I'm just worried about the gap in time. If we can start service August 1, that's great.
These are 90-day vehicles, we can get them pretty quickly.
Okay.
I saw a bus at the Tire Town, I think it's called Tire Town, I was just wondering, looked like it was parked there, I didn't know. if it
For
was-
one of our buses?
Yeah,
You would probably just get some tires put on it.
okay, well, it's been there for a while. hasn't it?
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why.
I don't know.
Did you see it?
No,
Yeah.
And it's one of the Coast RTA vehicles?
Yeah,
Where?
at Tire Town, it's like 501, 544.
Yeah, we use them, they're a vendor,
Okay.
so I'm sure it's getting something done, but I don't know what.
Sure, can get our general manager with a repair or two.
Yeah,
You know,
maybe you just bring it to my house and I'll work on it.
I'll help you.
All right, so in Finance Committee, we skipped over the Finance Committee report.
Okay.
So,
we'll go back to it.
but,
You want to have Marvin?
yeah, we can go back to it and then we can kind of hit this when
All right,
when
yeah.
it's more appropriate. I think that's all I have on the slide presentation, so.
You
Okay,
want some lights on while we do Marvin?
Sure.
time out for 5 minutes.
Well, I can't see Marvin down there anyway.
All right, that's right. Oh, you can hear me, I'm good. Actually, I'll be quick, Joe, so I don't know if you want to do it after. So we just had 3 main points that I think we had out of Finance Committee. The first one was just looking at the expenses. I think they were relatively smooth. Even though we saw a little bit of red, we realized that a lot of that was just small percentages or small values, so not really much of a concern in going over budget on any of the expenses at this point. So we're looking good on the expense side. We then talked a little bit about cash requirements. There were a couple of points, and as we looked at some of the quick ratios and current ratios, we noticed a little bit of liquidity issue there coming up, so keeping an eye on just timing of cash flows and expenses. And then the last piece was really just a revenue oversight, minor oversight in revenues that the general manager is working on. We get to, I think it was about 400,000,
Yep.
405.
Marvin, did you get a chance to look at the credit card stuff that Ron put out?
Yeah, so the April ones that we looked at, yeah, so we looked through, and we had some discussion about some of the pieces, so you should have had the details of what everything was. I think the only thing that was a glimpse.
What, last week, I mean, we saw the April, there was, first time I saw a finance charge, it was only 20
Right.
bucks. But we got some last night.
Just last night.
Yesterday, yes, that's about yesterday.
But there was,
What's that?
the 91,000 to City of Myrtle Beach. What's it, what is
That's for the
that?
transit center.
We had the,
We pay them and then we go back and get reimbursed.
and there was like 4,000 to Conway City. There was 2 checks close side to side, but the.
4,000 to the city of Conway?
I thought so. Anyway, the 91s what caught my attention, but that was a transit center.
Those
I figured out
transit
what that
Why
might have
would
been.
we give them
Okay.
that $4,000?
We didn't do anything with the chamber anyway.
Yeah.
You have to go
It's
back
not
and look
ringing
at
a
that
bell,
one.
I
That's
just
not
look
ringing a
at
bell.
it.
Wait a minute.
$4,000 is what they gave us 3 years ago.
Yeah, pay it back.
I'm not sure what that was.
But the 91 was what I wrote a note on. That,
Yep.
I thought that's
That was a
probably
good
what it
one.
was.
Should we have any taxes or anything to?
We don't get
I
taxes.
wouldn't think.
I think you have the eventual stuff.
Maybe I'm
Well,
not
they
sure.
would pay city comments, be utilities.
Yeah, we do, they do our trash pickup and
Oh,
stuff,
okay,
but it's
that
not
might
four,
be
but it's not
trash.
$4,000.
Yeah,
Well, maybe
Water,
electricity.
sewer.
But the 91 is what I was
Pretty
interested in.
Yeah, that's the transfer station.
Okay.
Yeah, that's big.
Okay.
but
We do look at
we'll
it.
take a, yeah.
For the record, there's a number of us on this
Right.
board who goes over
Right.
all credit cards and all checks.
Yeah.
And they are looked at.
The problem is the timing of the time.
Right.
It's so close to the finance committee.
No, last night was fine.
Yeah,
That was
okay.
fine.
So I'll give you a little bit of time at
The main
least,
ones,
yeah.
we'll have our discussion at our next finance committee about details about that.
Okay.
But the April
That's
ones
the
we did.
spreadsheet.
Yeah, so
We
it's
talked
all
about
right,
this.
so, yeah.
Right, so,
Now we have the $500,000 hoops.
That's right.
It's not $500,000.
It's 400.
Well, look, I mean, if Kitty doesn't listen to me, it's a pretty egregious error, I'll grant you that. But if you remember the last budget that was approved, we weren't spending $157,000 of it. It's gonna have an impact on how much money we're putting into our O&M reserve. And so that's up to 267. And so there are some timing, I think, on some of these capital projects that will be affected. But there's all sorts of things going into,
People weren't here last time, you better give a little bit of
well,
background.
in the budget, we've overstated local revenue by a sixth quarter, $405,000. And so what happened is in the spreadsheet, there was 400,000 in there from earlier iterations of the spreadsheet because we weren't trying to spend the last slug of local money. And then we changed our mind and we decided to start spending it, and we finished the year with 321,000 in local funds, so I put 321 in that cell. And so that 321 already assumed the 400,000 coming from local funds for that fifth quarter in 2016. So huge problem, but I think it's fixable, and I just wanted to, I don't have all the answers yet. I don't think there's really a whole lot of ramifications in FY17 where it's really hitting us as an FY18. And so we had Mike in here the week before Triennial, getting me started on some of that, looking at some of those budgets and doing an actual financial plan. We're due to do an update to our 5-year financial plan, which is, it's an exercise that needs to happen, but it doesn't say much because we're assuming level funding. So that it says it's got a lot of bad news in it, basically. But these are the budget considerations that are sort of pushing us in the wrong direction. Obviously, we've overstated this local funding. We've got a pension increase of 2% beginning in July 1st that I think we had 1% in there in the budget. So we're, that's, what is 1%, like 25 grand?
20, yeah, 20.
Between 20 and 25 grand. So we've got 20 to 25 grand additional in pension outlays. The due grant over the course of 18 months, so that's gonna have a little bit in 17, which is not gonna be a factor. All of 18 and then a little bit of 19 is gonna be about 25 to 35 in local funds impact on operating costs. The overall operating cost is about 180,000, depending on what we put out there.
180,000 for what time period?
For 18 months.
Yeah.
And we're getting 100,000 from the workforce development folks.
Well, we think, right? We don't know.
Well, yeah, right, we don't know if we get it. This is all if we get it. We have a pretty good, strong application, so
We're not
as
gonna
long
do
as they
the-
get it in on time.
We're not gonna do the route without the grant.
We're not gonna do the route without the grant.
And what about when the grant ends in 18 months, how are we gonna continue the route?
Well, I think, that's a very important part of the evaluation, and I think it really kind of depends on some of these conversations with the state on how we're handling rural funding. But, presumably, these are rural services, so we'd be increasing the amount of rural service in our system and
to make sure the riders.
in the calculation, in the calculation, that supposedly increases your percentage of the pot. So I'm hoping that the pot increases and our percentage
And
increases.
we're drawing a line in the sand that if they start reducing the amount per grant, we walk away from it.
Right.
That's a problem, though.
Plus-
That's a problem that we've had a
Plus-
lot.
It is a problem. It's gonna be advertised as a pilot program.
Right.
So, and we're not gonna make any changes to Route 1. So we've changed that aspect of it, so that we're not having to change Route 1 back.
But what about the amount of ridership you're going to have? How many times a day is this running?
It's gonna be one trip in the morning, one trip in the evening, and from each location, and then probably a demand response trip back and forth during the midday. If we need to run it, we will.
And you'll run it, if it's demand just for one, you'll run it all the way there? Good God, it's a lot of gas.
Agreed. But we
Because,
might have a different type of vehicle to run it,
Did
so
they
it'll be a little
guarantee
bit more
you a
efficient.
certain amount of people are gonna ride this?
No. And I don't want the board to get hung up on ridership for these rural services. We're just trying to make connections. Our system only does 15 passengers per hour when we're really
popping. So that is more a factor of the frequency of service and just the level of service in general.
I'm concerned that, I don't want you to give away the shop. If they come back with less than full funding,
We'll reconsider. We may just do one location, you know.
well, if you've got a plan that's fiscally responsible, but otherwise we can't
Understood.
use your other funding sources to that extent.
The nice thing about this though is we're getting 15K from the city of Laura, so they've got skin in the game. And you know, if we were to get half funded or something like that, we'd probably just do the lower side of it, because they've kicked in. But you're right, and it's only if we get it, the grant. I mean, it's, I don't know, it's probably
What-
50-50 on whether or not we get the
What is
grant.
15,000, you know, on itself? What does that cover?
Well, the total cost is gonna be between, total cost and local funding is in the neighborhood of 25 to 35,000. Because the amount that's not being subsidized by the grant goes into our regular federal calculation. So we'll be drawing down funds for portions of it. And so that 15, the 25 to 35 includes 15. Okay, so it's really, it's a $10,000 to $15,000 bump in operating costs for us locally.
So if we got half and just did Loris, we'd be even.
Possibly.
With
Oh,
much
you're
more
gonna-
So we don't wanna
service.
be in a hole though,
Yes.
because we don't wanna be in a hole.
Well, these numbers are small enough that we shouldn't have too much of an issue integrating it into our service.
No, how are you gonna determine, if you need,
Extra trips,
yeah.
we'll just have to play that by ear. I mean, if we have overloads and stuff like that, then we have to think about that and not have to go to other sources for funds in order to pull it off.
Will somebody be coordinating this from the employee side, the workforce people? Somebody's gonna have to be taking the responsibility of letting these employees know this transportation system is available. Is that your job too?
Well, we're gonna be doing some public meetings in order to kind of shape the service, figure out what the schedule needs to be and where they need to be. We will get some support from on the destination end on who's using the service, hopefully. But we're probably looking at having to do some surveys on these routes in order to get an understanding of the effectiveness, because that's part of the grant, is, you know, understanding the effectiveness of the service. You know, a lot of the folks, especially out of Bucksport, they're using the service already. You know, they're just getting a ride up here to Conway, or they're doing the long way.
But the proposed route will give access to Voc Rehab, which we aren't currently able to do.
Right. Connects a very important destination just, you know, a couple miles down on 701 at Voc Rehab down there on the left.
Yeah.
That's a huge, and so we should see some ridership for that.
Where is that route gonna be, is it gonna go 701 or?
Yeah, these are both 701 north and 701 south.
Yeah.
Then when we get
I
to,
was thinking, well, I don't know, you got a lot of people in Long, if you come down through that way and come to 905, I don't know if that would be
Yeah, that's,
feasible or not.
I agree with you, but
Long trip.
yeah, we can't afford to do that. In fact, we had a little bit of an internal argument about whether or not we can use 410 and get a stop there for people in Green Sea to drive
Oh
through.
my gosh.
I mean, it's not getting to Green Sea, obviously, when you stretch the imagination, but it gets a little closer to where they can access the service. So, I mean, this is rural service. You're not gonna get a ton of people, but,
When is this supposed to start?
August 15th, if we get the project. It
you
gives us
probably,
about 45 days to do our public meetings and get it all set up and
you
designed.
probably thought of this when this starts, and I'm optimistic it will. I'm sure you thought Mr. Phillips needs to know for the Bucksport end for Horry County.
We
But
talked to
also
them.
Tom Rice's office, Andrew Mims is
They-
interested. I talked to him a little bit last week.
They gave us a support letter.
Good. So when it starts, make sure we remind, because Mims does a pretty good job of telling Congressman Rice what's going on.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if you read the article in the paper, but Congressman Rice was the one who expedited it for us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
With someone behind him pushing.
Which we
each
really
other.
appreciate.
I
Make sure you smile on the camera when you say that.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
I was there last
Um,
week. Senator Rankin was
so-
meeting with Rice last week. I was
So other considerations, there's capital project timing. Brunswick, North Carolina is gonna become a subrecipient in FY '18. So the concern I have about this is that the COG is peeling off the 5% at the beginning before our 5307 comes here. And if that's the case, then they ought to be managing that. But our planner is leaving. He's going to, yesterday was his last day, Edward Starks,
The COG planner?
the COG planner. So I'm gonna talk to them about sliding that 5% our way in order to do this for them. And we'll see how that conversation goes.
What will we do in Brunswick County?
Brunswick County is gonna be, we're gonna be a pass-through of 5307 funds to Brunswick County,
We're a collection
which
agency.
means we have to monitor them. Everything that Triennial reviews us for,
Yeah.
we have to review them
Wait,
for.
we're not running service up to
No,
there.
sir.
Okay.
They're good,
So they're-
they're barely run service.
Yeah, they're talking about doing something in Charlotte, which is part of the urbanized
But
area.
they're in our MPO now.
They are in our MPO, a portion of Brunswick County is in the urbanized area, and it's that population that we're basing their slug lengths, about $80,000 to $90,000 a year. So,
Population is
that's-
rising too.
yeah,
So in other words, GSAS would take the 5% and we do the work the way it is.
well, that's the way it's set up right now, but we need to change that.
That's
We
up
discussed
Wilmington
that
area.
when they were here,
Well,
remember,
it's,
a
it's
few
right
years
over the
ago?
line, it's just above Little River.
And I asked GSAS, I said, why are you getting 5%? What are you doing? And I couldn't get an answer.
Well, and that's, they already get 5303, which is planning, money, but, and they're getting administrative funds out of 5310 and these other areas. So I don't know how that conversation will go, but if they don't wanna give any money, then they can deal with Brunswick County.
We drove
As far as
home
I'm
from
concerned.
Massachusetts through that area, coming down on 95 and then coming that way. At 3 o'clock in the morning, a couple of weeks ago. You don't want to drive that. area.
Which road?
That, through the whole Brunswick area, right around Wilmington. We
Oh,
just follow the,
17.
phone,
Oh.
directions. We were in the middle of
Where?
Did you come on 40?
Yeah,
Did
that's
you come-
actually,
Did you come on
it's
40?
actually west, I think you're talking about west of there.
Yeah.
Talking about
Yes, it is.
701 in those
Yeah.
areas? Yeah,
Right.
this is up 17.
Oh, okay.
So it runs along the coast. So it's
Yeah.
Brunswick
Yeah.
Beaches,
Further inland than-
Ocean Isle Beach and.
I'm sorry, if you go up 17, you get on the 40.
Yeah, we didn't get 40. Coming back, we just
Oh, you
followed,
went through
we
the little
followed what
towns.
the GPS said, and it was,
Oh,
it was
You
like
don't
going
wanna
through
do
swampland. And eventually you do come out at 701. But I would not want to be driving any kind of mass
Yeah,
transportation.
no, that's crazy.
there. Yeah.
Additional
I'm just
considerations.
commenting
we've
on
got-
how rural it is.
Yes. 3% wage increase coming up July 1st. I'm committed to doing that, so we've got to figure that out. And then some other considerations. We are getting $80,000 in planning funds from the state to support the bus stop designation program. So that's requiring a match of $20,000. Increased advertising revenue, we've already talked about. We have paid off the DSN vehicle lease as of this year, so there's $30,000 in expenses that we won't have in 2018.
Is that the DHHS thing?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not DSN?
It's DHHS.
Sorry.
Is that
Sorry.
3% across
That's
the
the
board?
Texas department, not the South Carolina department.
That 3%, is that for everybody in the authority?
That's what we'll average, yeah.
And are you doing it across the board, or are you doing it some other way?
Well, we're gonna do, depends on the department, but we're gonna match that up to a number of cents per hour for wage employees, and then salaries will work out by percentage. And we've gotta get on the stick for doing our reviews and everything like that, that's gonna happen in June. Paratransit efficiencies, we are, I have this thing, I just wanna show this to you all. If you look at the blue line, those are the number of revenue hours per month that we've been operating. And obviously, you know that our efficiencies or our effectiveness is going up, and we're getting close to 0.9 passengers per hour. But that is the average cost, labor cost per revenue hour in the orange. And so if you look at the, late last year, we were close to $16 an hour. In that, there's really two impacts there. There's a lot of downtime that we were paying drivers as well as overtime. And so we've got that down to 13, I think it was 13.89 in April. Why is that sticking there? And so that means we've curbed overtime in the paratransit and we're not doing as much downtime. We've really improved those schedules. So, this has really kind of been an ancillary benefit to what our original goal was of getting more, getting the schedule tightened up. It's, the numbers are going the right direction. Now, revenue hours continues to go up, so the overall cost of paratransit is going to continue to rise. But I think we've got a good control on labor. So even if this goes up a little bit, we're still not going to be spending as much as we were spending back here in labor. So those paratransit efficiencies should be a help in the budget for next year.
When I came on the board in 2008, a long time ago, we were paying that DHHS money.
Yeah, it's been many years.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed that it wasn't showing up on the income statement because it's a balance sheet issue, and so we were spending the 30 grand, and it wasn't really part of the budget.
Yeah.
But it's nice that we don't have to spend that money because that's all local money going into that. And then the last consideration, and this is something that we just talked about, we haven't done anything with, is we need to probably look at our urban-rural split and potentially make some adjustments there. All of the 16Xs, which are on our urban or rural system, could be urban because it's the endpoints. And so we're going to kind of do some math on whether or not we can get some more federal funds into the system in order to make things meet in FY18. It's not an ideal situation, obviously, but it's an option out there because we do overmatch the rural money quite extensively. I don't know that we'll necessarily need a budget revision as a result of this for FY17. I want to keep an eye on that, where we are according to the overall budget. It was like 11,000, I think, after April. We were under budget. As long as that number stays there or gets a little better, I think we'll be fine. The big thing will be getting to the FY18 budget, so we'll start getting those numbers out to you in July.
But you've got a preset trigger, so it's not really when you're watching.
Right,
it,
yeah, the trigger, well, yeah. This revenue issue is not one of the triggers on there, so I think we could do a revision if we wanted to. But I just want to let it ride for a little bit. Let's see how we're doing on some of these capital projects. See what the price is on the bus stop designation, those types of things, and I need more information before we can really figure out how to alleviate the problem.
Okay.
So that's it for the manager's report.
Well, all right. I have a question regarding the Waccamaw COG meeting in Georgetown. I had brought this up to you, Brian. I also brought it up to our Millie Jean, and she is going to attend that meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Is this down in Georgetown?
For
It's a neighborhood, though. It's limited.
Brian.
Update your resume.
Chairman.
Okay, sounds good.
It's up to you to, I said, well, we'll leave it up to Brian to say okay or what?
And that was on June 12th?
Yes.
It's on my calendar, so I'll try to be there as well.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
same day as your transportation committee, I think.
Yeah.
But that's
Morning.
7 o'clock.
Morning,
Oh,
7
Night
o'clock.
meeting.
Yeah.
Night meeting.
I'll just use an Explorer.
It's at 12:30.
You didn't hear me.
Georgetown. We usually handle monthly, so, and here again, that's entirely up to you how you're gonna handle it.
I'm hoping Miss Lily Jean loves that company so much that monthly meal that she says, okay. I'll be there as
You
a
get to line up.
That's
Say
good.
you don't
That's
wanna
a
go
good-
because of me.
Yeah.
Annette.
They're very nice people. But they did want to know, That was Sarah Smith to notify her of the
Oh,
effect
of meals and stuff?
if you're gonna be there.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Legend will pay your mileage.
Yeah, sure, you can take a bicycle.
yeah, you
From
can
home.
Yeah, walk, yeah.
One of the few. Okay, and, let's see here. Now we got the, I believe we covered everything but the resolution.
I do have one question. In the Finance Committee meeting, you went through the issue of timing
On the cash requirements?
of the money. And I think two of these resolutions are to actually allow you to maybe get in front of the county sooner than you would otherwise. Do you want to explain, if I'm misinterpreting?
One of them is.
This
One of them.
Finance.
It's the one to accept the May financials?
Yes.
Does the Finance Committee accept the May financials?
That's due to the timing.
Right, I guess we could have talked about that under Finance Committee, but essentially what we're asking the board to do, to resolve, is we have these timing issues of cash, which are clearly represented in the cash requirements
Yeah.
sheet in the board report. And we're making use of our newly minted short-term loan policy. You know, we have the opportunity of possibly getting the funds from the county a little bit quicker in July instead of waiting until July 15th. You know, even a week earlier would help us out tremendously if we can get them an invoice. And so we don't want to send them an invoice until the board accepts the May financials, because one of the prerequisites for getting the funding is giving them our latest board report. So we're asking the board to allow Finance Committee to, you know, accept the May financials so that we can pull the trigger right after that meeting, which is in the third week of May, on an invoice to the county, give them the final board report for May, and, you know, any list of other sundry items that they want for that, so that we can get that invoice on their docket and get our first check. So, you know, with that, there's really two checks probably be coming from that. One will be the regular payment, and one, you know, we should have an invoice for our first bus. So I can draw down from them the local match for that.
Well, I'll make that motion since I made a mistake yesterday and told Lynette she put the wrong month in.
You don't need a motion here.
I know.
So that's what that one's for. We have,
Will you be in front of the county then to make the request of the earlier invoice and payment?
yes, and I should have mentioned in the manager's report that I am on the docket for the next transportation committee meeting, which is June 15th.
June 12th.
Or
12th.
June
12th.
12th, thank you.
Is it 9 in the
All right,
morning?
so we just talked about that. It's at 9 in the morning, I think.
Well, I won't be there, I'm having my
That's why I'm
surgery.
coming.
Yeah, I'm gonna be there.
So in that conversation, they're gonna be considering our two agreements, which you all are going to hopefully approve here shortly, so that we can get those signed. But in that conversation, I wanna talk to them a little bit about sort of the financial constraints that we have as it relates to operating costs. And, you know, with zero growth in our local funding. And so I haven't really come up with that presentation yet. I mean, I think this budget considerations pages probably would be part of that. You know, I wanted the world to sort of understand that we're kind of maxed out on our federal dollars, both urban and rural. And that to get bigger, we gotta kick in more from a local perspective. I'll also talk to them about some of the work at the state that I'll be doing through TASC. But, you know, so that we're not picking on them only, we're picking on others as well, but.
Well, you're drawing down your money more efficiently than the authority used to, and that gives you a better vision. You know, you don't have this cushion of fat money lying around that you haven't drawn down.
Right.
So it just means that they need to understand you're operating closer to the margin, because you are being more efficient in your drawdown of the available cash and spending it, instead of letting it slush around.
And I don't think people really understand that we're getting close to or using up all the federal funds. They can't get more local money and then we grab more federal.
Right, there's a point where the local has to cover all the costs, on the operating side.
Yeah.
So,
They need to understand that.
And I had a conversation with Johnny Bott and kind of talked to him about that, and he said, bring it, come let us know, we'll help you out as best we can, so. So hopefully I can, another budget consideration, obviously, is if they can do a little bit more for us this year, or even, some surplus funds this year.
Yeah, one-time money.
Yeah. So,
Talking about that, these funding agreements,
yeah.
have they changed from year to year, or is it, I'm just reading through, I've been reading the language.
Yeah, I mean, that's, yeah, well, they're basically the same. The regular funding from the county, that agreement has got cleaned up considerably. There was a lot of provisions in there that has to be removed because they were no longer pertinent. There were some repeats in there, things like that, so it's a lot cleaner agreement. I even kind of lobbied, like there was one where they wanted full control over our contracts. They wanted us to review our contracts, and look, I have to indemnify them. It's like, if I'm indemnifying you for a decision that you made me make on a contract, that doesn't work. So they pulled off of that. So, they're not looking at our contracts. They want us to have our procurement, which is another thing that we're having you all review on, and we'll give them the new procurement manual, once we get it finalized.
Was this on is this gonna continue, with them overseeing all these things?
I think
Or
so, until we have our own
Until
funding
we have our
source.
own funding source, okay.
And I'm okay with it. It's their money that we're
Well, I
spending.
know.
I mean, it seems pretty straightforward, but number 6, on the capital funding agreement, that no less frequently than quarterly, that you're supposed to fill out report.
Yeah, I'm there anyway, so I didn't really have any issues with that. I mean, I'm there every month.
You
so.
present your report, I mean,
If they ask them.
Justin Powell is presenting these. But no, I'm pretty regularly going by and checking in with them, and even if I'm not on the agenda, I chat with them before and after the meeting.
I think the point the board made previously to all of this is they didn't want the county to fund Coast RTA. It wasn't theirs to run.
Right.
Even though they gave us money.
And that came up with the second agreement for the thing. It's like, look, I really appreciate it, but I'm not a county department.
That's right.
And I think we're moving closer to that. I don't think we've gotten completely out from underneath that, but I mean, that's one point I need to make. I got to think about how to say it politically correct. But if they'd taken the $1 million and divided it by 5 and given it to me over the course of 5 years, that would have been more powerful for us than getting a slug of $1 million. But by the same token, I mean, that $1 million is going to help us, considerably on some other things. And it's opened up some other capital things. And the agreement doesn't say buses, it says rolling stock.
Right.
So I'm gonna hopefully get a new, or a new used forklift, and we've got to replace the 2 caravans that haven't met their useful life and things like that. So there's some other expenditures that are not showing up in any
Couple
budget
more
yet
Explorers.
that I'll make.
Might need one more. Yeah.
I can only hope we get some more Explorers, but, these smaller paratransit vehicles and those types of things. So that's what that $1 million has done for us. It's opened us up in that without any.
But you're gonna have to at least informally let them know rolling stock might mean something other than a bus.
Right.
Because you don't wanna do that and get to.
Well, and I want to ask about doing some midlife overhauls on vehicles. Because, from the bodies of the DART buses, those are in pretty good
Just
shape.
you don't wanna cause any sense of distrust on their part.
Agreed.
Yeah, you may want to be upfront.
yeah, I'm wondering who put that language, that specific rolling stock, or if that was intended, but again, that was a
I'll ask Justin.
yeah, to make sure
Yeah, I
you
think
get it
I-
clarified.
Generally speaking, staff over there has been great. I went back and forth on these agreements quite a bit with them.
Well, it's because we have a couple of people on their transport that
Support us.
support us,
Absolutely.
right, where in years past, no one supported us.
And that's really one reason we need to protect it by being completely upfront.
Right.
That's right. but we wanna be in
So,
control of.
so one thing that is in here that I tried to lobby against was that we basically have to get another council resolution to get any unspent money after FY18 in this. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, I thought you guys were giving me $1 million.
Right, right.
And so that puts a little pressure on us spending it down a little bit more in FY18 possibly. And I have the federal side, you know, up to about 500,000 in 5339 to do that. So, you know, I think we estimated about right around 500,000, using about 500,000 of it in FY18, and might bump that up a little closer to 600, 650. And then, you know, hopefully they don't take it away.
Well, why at last?
There's no
council
reason
meeting-
for them to take it away.
At last council meeting, they added to the budget a resolution or a paragraph to continue this money in 2018. Was it 2017 money?
It's RIDE 3 money, it's RIDE 2 money. That's why it has to be for capital.
Right, but they continued it into 2018, which I thought it always was.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, that has to be the source, an issue with the source of the
yeah,
funds.
We appreciate your know-how and understanding of these agreements to get us through these.
Yeah, I did contemplate going to the lawyer, but
Hey,
the issue of
whatever
going
issue
to the
you gotta
lawyer
do,
is
you
that
gotta do it.
our lawyer represents the county too, so.
Yes, and that's a conflict of
I
interest.
can't go to them
That's-
for
That's a conflict of
so,
interest.
so it's really, you know, if you saw some of the emails, man, they get it that, you know, this is, they understand it's a new regime over
That's
here,
why we
so.
got rid of lawyers before, because of that reason.
So, anyway, so we got procurement, we got accepting of the financials, and we have, are there any other questions on the agreements? We'll have an agreement with Myrtle Beach as well, coming up hopefully next month. I haven't asked them about that yet, but we have a similar agreement with Myrtle Beach. And I'm not sure, you know, it sounds like it's 235 from Georgetown County at this point, so we'll stick with that.
And is that up or the same?
That's the same, but it was up from the year before, so it's good.
And what was the one you were talking about that's going to come through with, is that a grant that was supposed to come through in 2021?
2021.
All right, and what was that for?
Capital,
500,000.
500,000.
Yeah, I
That's a
gotta-
grant, and that's a grant.
No, it's just gonna be, well, we're trying to get it through the capital improvement program.
Okay.
That's-
Well, federal government, the budget don't cut public transportation.
It's out there, essential.
That's why we want to get
Hopefully not.
it as soon
That's
as
what it's made
possible.
up to, quite a bit.
Yeah, they were talking about some pretty sizable cuts that would
Yeah.
cut into 5307,
Well,
so.
you never know what's going to happen in the next 3 years.
The nice thing is we're still operating on, we have a little bit of FY16 left and FY17 is there, so and we're using FY17 and FY18, so those cuts become an FY19 problem.
Remember, that's just the president's budget, that's not really the
Yeah,
federal government.
DOA.
So
We'll
it
see.
hasn't been approved, no.
DOA.
That's right. Everything he's signed so far has been DOA.
Don Kane says it's dead on arrival, I'm gonna
So we
take
want to go
that
through these resolutions?
Yes. Okay. Go on to number
Okay.
11, approving the resolutions.
Wait a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What you
I
got?
don't mean to keep like,
I didn't-
harping on this, I'm sorry. On the capital, the coast capital funding agreement with the county, number 7, it states that, of course, the assets acquired through this agreement shall be used solely for the provision of mass transportation in the agency service area. In the event the agency declares the asset to be surplus or non-operable, the agency may dispose of the asset through methods permitted by its policies and procedures. Any residual or salvage value rendered must be applied to the purchase of acquiring buses or other similar rolling stock, or shall be returned to the county. I mean, how,
We don't spend it, it's all
So,
back to him.
all right, so let's think about that. I mean, we run these things down to the bone. We rarely get less than 5,000, more than 5,000 for one. And the local portion of that 5,000 is
20%.
20%, so $2,500. So it's, We can show that it's going into a surplus or give it back to them.
And they've always gone way over their useful life.
That's not how
Right.
strict they
See,
are.
so most of them are like, you know, like a cutaway, if we bought a cutaway, we get $8.50. So we're talking about $2.25. If they want a check, we'll cut it.
Out of your million, here's $850.
Yeah, I just, again,
The word's similar in front of rolling
We
stock.
change your question.
Makes you think you're not gonna get a forklift out of this thing.
Probably not.
Forklift ain't similar to.
Yeah, but
Rolling
it's,
stock.
you know, it's a key
Good
part
try,
of, key part of maintaining
Yeah,
our
I
fleet.
agree.
So
I go
we'll,
for it. Yeah.
we're gonna ask the question.
It rolls.
all right,
Yeah.
That's
And it
right.
does roll.
Done.
And we're leasing one right now, so we can't stay with that option.
Okay.
All right,
Let's get the show on the
onward
road.
with the resolutions. Lynette?
Walkable Regional Transportation Authority, resolution number May 2017-12, approval of revisions to procurement manual.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to,
Procurement policy, not manual.
To be manual.
Different headed in the agenda then.
I so move.
Second.
Discussion?
any discussion on it?
Yeah. Background, line 4, I'm not an English major, but attachments, the word reads has, should be H-A-V-E, have.
Spell check doesn't get that kind of
No,
stuff,
no, but
unfortunately.
some of us read these things.
Huh?
No, it doesn't give grammar. Some of it there.
One correction?
We'll go make that change real
We'll
quick.
make that change?
Yes.
You want to go on to the next resolution?
Well, you can approve it and.
Yeah, you can
the
approve
one
it,
you
and
sign
I'll
will
go
be-
change it,
will
and
be
then you
fixed.
can
Okay.
sign the change.
All right.
Are there any questions about this? It's pretty
Any other
straightforward
questions?
stuff.
Okay, we'll get the correction done, and we'll vote on the resolution 2017-12. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against, nay. Being none, approval of resolution number 2017-12. Thank you. Okay, on to 2017-13.
Walkable Regional Transportation Authority, resolution number May 2017-13, approval to allow the Finance Committee to accept the May financials.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on May 2017-13? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against, nay. There being none, 2713 is approved. Thank you.
Walkable Regional Transportation Authority, resolution number May 2017-14, authorization for board chairman to execute Horry County funding agreements.
So move.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have any?
Need a second.
Like I said, he's gonna be out of town the month of June, that's gonna be a problem. It's his sign.
The whole month of June?
I'm gonna be away
Be back on
from
the
the
23rd.
from the 9th through the 24th.
Oh, you got a week after that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah,
get.
I'll be back for the board meeting.
Okay.
Any other discussion on the matter?
I think Sid seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against, say nay. There being none, the proposal is approved. Okay. Thank you.
Take one.
Do we have one more?
No, we
I
did
think
three.
Take one and pass this down. This is for the next.
Oh, I'm gonna get one.
No, I think.
This
is
is different. This is
correct.
marked where we wanted the corrections. And I don't know what this copier did with the stapling, but
Okay.
it's crazy.
Thank you.
That's the rest of these down.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
There you go.
Okay, so this is the,
This is a marked up version of it.
Markup.
No?
Okay, we're gonna
Still
open up
working
this
with
So-
revisions.
bylaw.
Yes, ma'am.
You wanna do this now or set a time for it?
This is new.
Changes
Right
right
now, we're gonna do this. Let's get this over.
That's different.
You're not leaving this room and see.
Oh, do I have another one?
The new one. The new
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
You have yellow at the bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're okay.
Is there another copy? Can you go down the road? Here you go.
There's one here.
All right, everyone has their copy in front of them?
Yep.
Yes.
So we're covering this in old business? Okay.
Well, I don't know, that's the
Yep,
way it was
it is.
put there.
Yep.
All right, page 2. All right, there's been some question about the general manager. Are we going to call Brian the general manager or the CEO? There's been a problem about payment for him
Yeah, I don't,
in certain areas. So what are you going to do about that?
yeah, I don't know that the title matters. So I don't know that we need any change on this. If the only reason to change it is because we're worried about how much of our admin costs get covered, I don't think it's gonna do us any good. It's the position, it's not the title. I have been doing, for the last 6 timesheets, I've done, I've calculated the percentages for my time between reimbursable and non-reimbursable. And I'm at about, what did I say, 60%?
Yeah, 60
Reimbursable. So, we've asked for federal technical assistance to come and help us with that calculation, so, and to help us figure out how to document this with the data. So I think we'll have that issue resolved by the end of the year, end of the fiscal year, so that we can, you know, if we do, if we are able to justify a higher percentage, we can fix that in truing up for next year.
Was there not a couple of months ago some issue about what your name was and what your title was?
Well, it came out of FMO, and it was related to my general manager's duties versus my CEO duties. CEO being more of a governance type of position, and GM being more, you know, hands-on operating type of thing. Whether we just say if we just say CEO, I
Well, we
still
have to make
think-
it, we have to make a decision, because it's all through here. What are we gonna do?
I think
Well, I think
we'll
I'm,
just leave it.
leave it alone, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it's not some places we say CEO, other times we use both. I just don't know why, I don't care which one we end up
Okay,
picking
so
now.
we'll
We'll
just make
change
sure
that.
they all say GM, CEO.
They all
Okay.
say the same, all right.
Okay?
Leave that alone.
When you were applying for the position, did it make any Beam's difference to you what it was told?
No. None whatsoever.
No, we're just trying to be consistent here.
Yeah.
Grand Poobah would've been nice.
No, Grand
What'd you
Poobah
say?
actually has a very
Okay.
negative meaning compared to
Is
the
it?
people that I know who have been there, so.
Well, I was just joking, so.
Okay, I want to go through this as fast as possible. Page 5. Page 5, which is yellow in here, paragraph Q reads, provides transportation service for residents of the service area to destinations outside the service area. That was a question that Darrell put forth.
What is that saying?
We used to run service to Charleston,
Yeah, but we don't anymore.
but we don't anymore.
You have to read it.
And that was for the veterans, and that was for the veterans.
Yeah, I think if we don't
And
do
we
that.
couldn't get
we'll just
anybody to
strike it.
ride on
Fair
it.
transit. I, either that or just put as necessary.
Yeah, I like that.
Because I don't see it happening anytime soon, but it's possible,
Yeah.
possible, I mean, we might,
Over there someplace. Is there an extra copy?
I got it.
Oh, okay.
So I'll.
That's okay.
I'll make
That's
it.
fine.
All right.
Um,
As necessary?
That's fine.
There's possible if we were ever to do coordination with Brunswick, for instance, or coordination with PDRTA where we needed to go just outside the county, we'd want to have that
Okay.
ability. So as necessary,
No change?
So just a comment
No,
after.
as
and then-
necessary.
I was gonna put at the end as
As,
necessary.
at the end of it, right. Okay.
Good.
The next one is page 7. Page page 7, let's see, up at the top, it says 2/3 vote of said body, and that is for what? That is for,
You need that, Kitty.
Removal of director.
So this is removal of board members for malfeasance, misconduct, malfeasance, neglect of duty, interfering with day-to-day operations,
right,
The question,
would require
2/3 vote of the.
Of the board?
said body.
No, it looks like the appointing
appointing body.
Yeah.
body.
The question, is that something that we can dictate to the appointing body?
I don't think so. My opinion is, I don't think so, they do what they please.
Two-thirds of said body.
This, we recommend the approval, recommend the removal, not, we can't remove them,
No.
Right, we cannot remove them.
we can just recommend.
Well, I don't know if a recommendation from us would mean anything to,
But no, but they can recommend that that someone be removed, but
Directors.
us dictating a 2/3 vote of their
Yeah.
I think D needs to be struck.
Yeah.
yeah. I
Completely.
think so.
Well, I mean, you might say directors will make every effort to attend regularly scheduled meetings of the
We
board.
already, well,
Would
we
you-
already had, yes, we changed this before.
Would you say that the board of directors here could recommend to the governing body
Right.
a removal, and then the governing body has to make that decision themselves, based on the derelict duties of the board member to this board?
Well, I don't think the board can get rid of the appointing party, it would be the one. This was changed because,
Request.
right, this was changed because at one time it said that if you missed 3 meetings, you were out.
Yeah.
And we had too many people missing 3 meetings.
I think if we just get rid of the yellow part of it,
Yeah, in the sentence after, appointed him
or her.
or her,
Him, her,
and
Yeah,
take
and
the
then-
rest of
and
that
then-
out.
let's put her,
Just appoint him or her.
right, period.
Yeah, the only
What
issue
about
though,
removal from the board shall be,
but the wording is pretty
But
definitive.
how do our bylaws dictate anything that
That's right.
Yeah.
it
the
doesn't.
delegation does?
It
Yeah.
doesn't, it doesn't.
Yes,
We
it
have,
is.
we can say anything we want,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't, it's up to them because they don't even tell us when they're gonna when they're gonna
Exactly.
fill a position until the person shows up.
Right. But I think to Michelle's point, what we can do is we can recommend.
No, I know,
Or
I know.
I'm putting a recommendation, that's the only thing I think we.
Which is
The
not
bylaws
right,
could
which is
call
not
for
right.
this board recommending.
Just
Yeah.
say, instead of recommending to the appointing body, that you just say, inform them of the attendance.
Sure.
Yeah, that's fair. And then that's up to them, they do what they want.
Or any issues, any of these issues could be, we can
Just
inform them
inform.
of it, but that's as much as inform. Any misconduct, malfeasance, whatever.
Oh, wait a minute, what do I got here, another one?
So, okay, wait a minute, we've got two ideas here. We've got
Here.
attending regularly scheduled meetings, and then we have misconduct, malfeasance, neglect of duty.
Well, the first
Well, I
one
guess
is
it's
simply,
neglected duty.
the first one is a statement of what the board directors should make an effort to do. It has nothing to do with removing anybody.
Right,
And I think that that's valid, that someone who comes onto the board should make an effort to participate.
right.
So the second part of this, we should make its own number or letter.
All right, where are we? D?
We're
We're
still-
still on D?
okay,
Still on
Still-
on 7, right?
Yes, D, right.
So maybe that,
Maybe director would be E or D1 or something.
yeah, E, we can renumber below.
And you're gonna take out the whole
Attendance
sentence
of
that
board
says
members of meetings
removals
shall be
implemented.
reported on a monthly basis.
The F again, we don't need to be reappointed.
It just
They're
doesn't
going
have
to,
this term
they are
limits.
going to reappoint whoever they want without the recommendation of the board or the CEO.
I think if we just end it at him or her and take out upon a 2/3 vote of said body. Because in the next part, it's referring to section 33-31-809. And I can look that section up and send it to everybody if you'd like.
Well, we have no
Not
control
really.
over how a removal will be implemented. I just prefer to take the sentence out.
Yes.
I don't think we need
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Okay.
you can do all of it, or you can say, any misconduct, malfeasance, neglect of duty in office or interfering with daily operation will be reported to the governing body. So just so that you're giving the information to the governing body, that's it.
If the board member goes out and starts blabbing his mouth to the
Oh,
media.
now it's a him, huh?
To the media and goes on and the board member's told, we don't expect that of you, that's not to be done, and they continue doing that, that's a reason to notify
Right.
their, the
Governing
people
body.
who put them on the board that, they're not behaving in the way they should be.
So we still need a 2/3 vote though, before we go to the governing body, correct?
No,
Well,
that-
I think even-
Say that we have a two-thirds
That
vote, it
two-thirds
says
vote
that the
is
appointing.
for the body of the
The
appointing
body
body
is a
body.
two-thirds. We don't care what they have.
We're saying that
So-
the appointing body needs
Tell them
two-thirds
what to
votes.
do.
We have no
We
no reason to expect that.
How about if we do this? I think the whole removal of a board member is in a separate line. Go E, and then we'll renumber E, F, and G.
Mhm.
Okay, and let us put together some language that basically says something along the lines of, if there's misconduct, malfeasance, blah, 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 that the board of directors may vote to recommend removal to the appointing body.
No, I think we should just not recommend anything. I think we just notify them that what
Yeah,
we
it's
do.
up to them, it's up to them to
We
to
don't
make
have a
that decision.
recommendation.
So do you want though consensus among the board on whether or not to make that notification?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I mean, we don't want some individual just
Right.
run into the
Okay,
county
so
and saying, hey.
instead of recommend
Yeah.
removal, it's notify the board, notify the appointing entity of the issue by a two-thirds vote, by majority.
Yeah, that's my concern. I don't think any one of us should take it upon themselves to do that. It has to be us together.
How about a two-thirds vote of the board, and then
Yeah.
that's when we recommend for their.
So
their
we'll
appointing
notify,
body.
we're not recommending, we're
Right,
just
we're
notifying.
notifying.
Right.
Notify
Check with
based
other
on two-thirds vote.
authorities who have appointed members and see how that phrases their.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll get you some language on that.
Okay, page 8, section 2.
There's one more.
Oh,
Seven, yeah.
where?
In
Oh,
section
Oh,
4,
right. Last Wednesday of the month, a time, where do we see that?
at a time.
Last
It's
Wednesday,
been added.
That's just,
No, that was,
But add was not in
No,
there.
add is be taken off.
it says if we change the word at to or,
Yeah, right, that's what we're saying.
but we really don't have that happen very often.
We did last month.
Yeah, did last month.
Once in the last, how many years?
We did one time when we had a snowstorm at the end of February or January, in March.
So is this meant to be an or an half? Because it reads okay as an half.
I think so
It just speaks to
too.
the
I
time
think
and
it's
place,
fine.
but if it's an or, it then suggests a different day. That's a different concept.
And then it says down
Not a
below, you have to
Wednesday.
create a resolution to change the date and time.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you say, what's the consensus
I
here?
think we should leave it.
Leave it.
All right, let's leave it, all right, let's go on to page 8, I want to get home sometime today. Page 8, we have general manager, let's put dash CEO,
Yeah.
slash
So
CEO.
we want general manager slash CEO, yeah,
everywhere.
throughout. Okay.
Or is it CEO slash general manager?
No, general manager
All
slash
right,
CEO.
okay. All right, page 9.
Consistent.
Do we need to add the 10% budget revision? What is that? Page 9 is Article 6,
Budget
Section
triggers.
5. The annual budget may be amended to reflect actual expenditures and revenues. Do we need to add the 10% budget revision?
It's impossible.
I don't
I
think so.
don't think
It's
so,
part of
because
your
we have a
policy.
revision.
It's a
Policy,
Yeah,
they
we
got a
have
policy. Another
policy
board
for
might
it.
change the level to 12%. I don't think you want to
Exactly.
write it into the bylaws.
I agree.
Bylaws, yeah.
I don't think it needs to be in there.
Just a little bit.
I'm good.
It doesn't need to be in there. All right, let's take it out.
That remains as is. Page 10.
Okay, page 10 is manager CEO, which would be
That's what we just
leave that the way it is.
Miss
All
Kitty,
right.
if we ever go out on a date, I'm gonna just be really feel rushed.
That's why my board meetings were 25 minutes long, and I was chair.
Okay.
25 minutes?
Yes, they were.
You didn't get anything done.
Oh, yes, we did.
Yeah.
Whatever I wanted done, we got done.
There you go. All right.
We have
Have
no
a new
authority
goal.
to seal.
Oh, well, we have no seal.
We've never had a
All
seal.
right, that's one of your,
Page
that's your
13.
question.
Okay, yeah.
That's your question, Mr. Silverman.
Yeah.
Where is the damn seal?
Good.
Where, oh, I see where we are. I don't know, I've never
Do we
seen
have a
the
seal in the archives?
We have never had a seal.
I don't know. What
Not
is
since
it?
I've
seal?
been here. No,
I
sir.
don't know what the seal.
What is a seal? I mean,
It's like a notary seal, but a
Yes.
seal for the corporate, for the authority.
are we incorporated?
No,
Well, then why would we have a seal if we're not incorporated?
So strike the language.
never
please.
seen
All right.
one.
If we're not incorporated, why are we saying
The
incorporated
custodian of the
after
official
our?
records.
Huh?
We use that, you're right, yeah.
This is not
What?
a 501c3?
No.
No,
No,
no, we're not incorporated.
Because
Or
it's right
it would
here.
say incorporated under our
We're-
name.
we are a government entity.
But we say
But you're
incorporate
right.
after everything, so we can't use that then.
No, we
No.
shouldn't.
We're
Nor
not.
should we.
Hello?
That's
We
what I'm saying.
cannot.
No, because
We're an
incorporated
authority.
says you're a company and we're not a company,
The
we're an
Pilot
authority.
Club is a 501c.
It's in the
They are
agreement.
incorporated, and we have
No, you're right.
papers.
Baltimore Regional Transportation Authority.
I've never seen income on there.
Where do we see ink?
It says it.
Where have you seen ink?
In previous things, we've got ink.
I have seen it.
Really, I've never seen it.
Not in anything.
I've never seen it on anything.
So what
All
we'll
right.
do is change C to be custodian of the official records, period.
Right.
Period.
And then we'll find the seal tomorrow.
All right. Finish with that, page 14.
14.
Page 14, Article 9, this section needs revision since the Citizens Advisory Committee is no longer,
Yeah, it is
that
now
name
the
is used.
Service Advisory Group.
Well, is it functional?
No,
Well, wait a minute, what do you say, Michelle?
I'm saying that we chose to name it the Service Advisory Group in case we ever reconstituted the Citizens Advisory Committee. We did not want to
Right.
kill that. So we renamed it just as another group. You would meet more frequently than the CAC.
I would like to envision a future that is, we're big enough that we could in fact have a viable Citizens Advisory Committee.
And I like that name, Citizens Advisory Committee, right?
I don't know that we're there yet.
But when
We had a
that was
great
put in, every municipality, whether they gave money or not financially, they had two citizens that they were to nominate, and the board members were to nominate them.
and they were
Or
very
bring them in.
active.
Yes, yes. That's how it worked.
And what are we
Pam
using
Creech,
the committee for?
You know, that's
They would
like,
do the
Practically
public
nothing.
meetings, and they had a meeting at least
Every
once a
month,
month.
every month.
And Pam Creech reported to the board, she came to every board meeting and gave an update on what they were doing. They held,
They
It was
went to
different,
the, they
yeah.
went to the different groups,
But
they
it wasn't-
went to the
It wasn't
voter
necessarily
registration.
users of the system, it was
No.
like agents.
No, it was more or
Each
less
agency
more like
had-
that, yeah, political.
That's why we kind of changed it.
They were the eyes and ears
Mhm.
of people,
Exactly.
people out in the community.
And they went to all the different organizations, they had all these people backing us, is what
Yeah,
was
they-
really good
they-
about it. The women's voter registration group, and this group, and that group, and they supported us. We had their support, and when we had anything to do, they all showed up.
mhm.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we just change it to whatever name we want and
Or
say
just
that?
leave it alone.
Why don't you just leave it alone?
One thing is that we're grammatically all correct.
Well, I mean, the issue I have is it's in here and we're not doing it.
Mm-mm.
So can we put somewhere that we may institute, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
for
when established.
board member?
Bylaws
I'm
are
happy
supposed
to
to be things that
Try
are
to
going.
pull that off, but,
Well,
You
um,
can just say they can be active as needed or something along those lines.
activate as needed,
Maybe
Yeah.
activated
as needed.
as determined.
Yeah, that sounds good, so the board can determine if it's.
Or you want to put that at the
And
end?
then I'd also mention the subcommittees that could
At the
be
beginning.
out of like the SAG.
This is
Beginning?
15 members. each
What was that?
municipality will-
Maybe
Yeah,
also
there's
mention
no-
that the other
Yeah.
subcommittees such as the Service Advisory Group. that may replace this from time to
Something
time.
good came out.
Oh, it says each board member will appoint one representative, we've appointed
Mhm.
two. Well,
So conceivably, I mean, I like the idea of having this, I guess I'm a little bit concerned about having enough horsepower in order to pull it off right at the moment.
I am too.
But,
We don't.
I mean, types of things that I could see this group kind of weighing in on are, like if we ever do a fare box,
well, we had
you
a
know,
person
a
that
fair
was, we had a
structure
person,
analysis.
we had a person outside the offices that was in charge of this, that was gung-ho on this.
And preach.
Yes,
Yeah.
and she knew this one, and I mean, she would, and she left here because, well, for many reasons, I guess, but one reason is she went to, the,
Solid Waste Authority.
Yeah, she's on the board of Solid Waste
yeah,
Authority
yeah,
now.
Board chair.
and she,
She went to the what?
Solid Waste.
Solid Waste Authority, she's
She was
on the
around
board.
chair.
and she, and
Yeah,
I
she was.
tell you, she had this thing moving.
Yeah.
She attended
it was
every
very good.
county meeting.
They did all the,
So we changed
things on the
this.
boards, on the buses, they got on the buses and they asked questions and they
Right.
did all this.
No, we hadn't really made any changes to
The
this
board
at all.
the board
We get our
can
new names.
modify its
Yeah,
bylaws
we did that.
anytime it wants. I don't feel bad having a section here that we are not yet implementing, or that we implemented for a period of time. And now, if we were to go through the kind of funding increase and stabilization you're looking for, we would then need a very active board, because it would have to be widely
Agreed.
supported. So I think just the fact that it's in here need not
Right.
be, a reason to lose
And they
sleep.
went out looking for funding for
Perhaps
this
call it
also.
committee.
I just leave it.
And then under
I
that
agree.
committee's article, list the Citizens Advisory Committee, list the Service Advisory Group, or others as may be appointed by the board.
I think
I think that's fine,
I think just leave it.
Yeah, I mean, that can happen regardless, so. Okay, let's just, I mean, do you want to put a note in here that it's currently inactive, or?
No, because
No.
it may not be inactive in
Who knows?
Activated as needed.
But it was a,
Well,
it was,
so
it
we're
was
not
a
gonna say
very,
anything,
it was
so
so
just-
valuable that I used to come to this meeting to find out what was going on here.
It was.
Because at the board meeting, we didn't know what was going on.
They
That
had
was
meetings in
interesting.
different communities and they would handle all the announcing and everything and they would have them.
That's how I got started with this
All the
group.
everything.
I went to a couple of churches with
Mhm.
Pam and Bo were active in it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I still think, I like having it in there, but I still think you're setting yourselves up, if you say, I think as activated as needed, I think it should cover something, well, you don't have this committee, your bylaw. I think as needed or as activated,
Well, you can
but
put
the
that-
rest of it
you can
reads
put
well.
that- You can put that down,
Yeah.
either underneath the citizens, the heading here, you
Mhm.
can put that activated as needed, or
Yeah.
however you want
I'd
to
put
put there.
just a
Maybe
couple words,
activated
and less
as
of it
needed.
alone.
Right, right.
Third line,
Well,
first word, representatives, that comma needs to be moved to after appointed.
Yes.
Yes.
Activate
absolutely.
suggests that it exists, and it would be created as needed.
Where's that fact?
So just sort of be careful. It will be constituted as needed.
Yeah.
I think is a bit more, is closer to what you're talking about.
All right.
And then on this, I don't mean to go backwards, but on this resolution, the head is still here. I don't know if he's gonna see it when it comes
I don't think that's the one they're
What?
talking about.
No,
has?
no,
No,
it's just
that was not it.
That's not
Was
the
the
one they're
other-
talking about.
It's the one that's
It's
lower.
another
already been
has.
changed and gone around.
There's no
What now?
procurement.
Which one is it?
This is the one with one procurement manual.
It says attachments has?
I changed it.
No, it says environmental and energy efficiency preferences has been added.
Yes.
Is that the one you're talking about?
No,
No,
the
it's
fourth
after the word
line,
attachments.
after
It was after
attachments.
attachments.
The Pearl Singular Agreement or disagreement on line 4 background.
Say that again?
Okay,
Sure.
All right,
let's
so
get back to this. So we're
maybe
going, so you're gonna fix that.
what if we, in the first line, we just say, if the Citizens Advisory Committee becomes necessary, it will consist of 15 members.
Okay.
You guys agree with that?
Say what now? Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, now we're going to go to page 15. Article 10, Section 4, where it says the authority shall maintain liability insurance for directors, it might be a good idea to show the types of insurance for, two words there, insurance for liability. And that was a question that Darrell put forth, was that you?
Yes.
And you want to explain yourself?
Christine?
Are we protected up to $200 each?
What's this?
No, we have a
You don't-
million.
It's general tort liability and it's $1 million per occurrence.
Okay, that's
The board members are covered in with the executives.
So do you wanna put that level in
Yes.
in there, so
Yes, let's put that in
you
there.
already show
It's in red
obtain,
there.
attain liability insurance,
With the
in
minimum.
parens,
Not to be less than.
Right, minimum.
Yeah.
less than 1 million per occurrence.
And this
In
is for
general
the
tort
state
liability?
insurance.
Yes.
Well,
Sure that's enough?
Okay, so we'll
it's the same as it's always been.
fix that.
Should it say each officer in
Yeah,
the
that's what I was thinking too.
It's $1 million per occurrence.
Occurrence.
For each
That
of
means that there'd be several
Per
people in
occurrence.
occurrence.
Yeah, I don't know if it's per individual, it's per occurrence.
It says
No, it's
per occurrence.
That's not an individual.
Well, other cases that.
Well, there's
That's the
11
que-
of us.
That's the
Yes,
question,
there's
that's the
5
question.
people
That's
in the
why I'm
case.
asking.
It's divided.
Yeah, there's limitations, there's tort limitations on how much we can get sued for
Yes.
as a state agency.
Yeah.
I'm not that familiar with it, but I've been assured that the amount we have is A, consistent with other authorities, and B, what we need. But I can look back into that.
When I worked for transportation, you could sue any department, but you could not sue transportation.
Mhm.
Because we had the abolished you or
Yeah,
whatever.
So-
the
So
saying was.
the overall board itself is covered.
Yeah.
So we are a unit.
And so we have other policies support, like paying legal fees for individuals.
Well,
as
no,
well.
well, I was just asking because the lawsuits, we need specific individuals.
Right.
But I think this
As well as
refers
the board.
to, I think this
So I think
refers
it would
to
person.
bus accidents, doesn't it? If you have
No,
several
this is,
people on a
this
bus.
is, no, this is tort liability.
Officers
No,
This
we
is
have-
after we wrong somebody.
Okay.
We have liability and
I'll
collision
look into
on
that.
buses.
Give you guys a comfort level.
Yeah. Be nice.
Every year when we renew this, we have to give them a number of board members, managers, executives, how many administrative staff,
Yeah,
and
that's
this
just what
one
our-
or that role.
That's what our
That's,
premium
So
is
if
based on,
Coast
not necessarily the
RTA
coverage.
is,
Mhm.
if Coast
And
RTA
this is
is
what
sued by an
ours is.
individual, that's divided up by all the people who work in Coast.
Executives and
This is different insurance.
No.
It's not everybody that goes, but it's the management
Yeah,
and
the
board of
management,
directors.
right, right.
this is not like a bus accident.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm thinking of people inside, but you already have a different issue.
But the max
Mhm.
that we can be sued for is like 250,000. It's
Oh, well,
it's
that
much
is
lower
different,
than a
that is
million.
different than the insurance we have.
Right.
Right, it's different, okay.
I can look into this and give you guys a rundown on it.
All right,
I pulled this off.
Yeah.
all right, now we're going to go to page 16. Page 16, I would like to see the so-called seal. Here we go again.
Take
There
out
is
the
no
entire
seal.
article.
Yeah, let's, instead of doing that, let's just say, removed in
Mhm.
here, so we're not renumbering everything.
All right. So we're going to remove the whole thing, right?
Mhm.
All right, all right, so you have to renumber it, all right.
Yes.
Okay, and the last,
That's no
oh
longer.
Actually, you didn't highlight Article 17 on page 17.
Right, that's the one we're
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about.
But that's also one you wanted to
Right,
discuss.
exactly.
my, right, yes.
Committee. I think we can do away with that. I don't think it's clear enough what it's supposed to do. I don't think, I don't think it's gonna make it easier to make decisions. I think we're a board
It was
that.
Board as a
put in-
whole, was
It was
the
put,
committee.
it was put in for emergencies,
Mhm.
but
Only.
we have any emergencies, Brian informs all of us, which should be, the entire board should know, should not be a certain section of the board, because that is like you're favoring some people, you're telling them, and you're asking for a
The whole board as a
decision
whole.
from them. There's no reason why you can't get rid
Well,
of,
and
get hold of all of us.
Well, we've handled this with conference call.
Yes.
Publicly advertised.
Right.
You know, if
No
we need to have an
problem.
emergency meeting, so I
Yeah,
agree, I
it
don't
should
think
be
we need
deleted.
this.
It should be deleted. Right.
And renumber after that.
Yeah. Okay, and the last.
Well, I'd say removed, no longer in use. Let's keep the
Okay.
numbering the same.
Okay.
Delete.
We don't renumber.
All right, and the last one is page 18, and you're gonna combine, it's suggested that we've got to combine two service, the service committee and the communications and public relations committee together, and that was suggested by our co-chair, vice chair, I'm sorry.
But what's the proper, you always say PAC instead of communication and
Well,
public
it's-
relations.
yeah,
What
we changed
terminology
it.
do you want to use?
They've been changed now.
We
They were
changed it
changed.
after this was done.
Like the service
Brian changed it.
slash
This
PAC?
was done.
And what was PAC again? PAC was.
Public affairs.
Public
Public
affairs.
affairs, public, yeah.
So the new one's gonna be
Yeah.
called service slash PAC, is that correct?
I mean, I think it could
What
just
I,
be, it
what
could
I
just
would
be
like
PAC.
to do though is
Can it
I'd
just
like
be,
to
can
suggest
it
that
just be one name?
the reps go to five.
Right. Let's just call it PAC, because service is public.
Okay.
Okay, and with 5 members.
So Public Affairs and Communication Committee,
Mhm.
It's been suggested 5 members.
and we go to 5 members. We make that effective July 1.
But Lily Jean won't be a chair anymore, right? That breaks, she says it breaks her
She's
heart.
distraught.
It breaks her heart.
She is distraught. She's no
That'll be up to the
longer.
new chair.
That would be mine.
That'll be up to the new chair to,
And so, yeah, we'll make it effective July 1.
And also we remove executive committee from the
Right.
listing of committees.
I'd like to take 5 minutes,
all right,
finish the balance of this.
now,
Okay.
that's it.
Take 5.
5-minute break.
All right,
Okay.
do we,
5 after 4.
does that, my committee, are you satisfied with the
Yes.
recommendations?
And next month, we're gonna hear the text of the 2 pieces that we left open. Is that right? We're gonna vote on the whole thing, the pieces about, what were you gonna find out about?
Yeah, I gotta look at the insurance and then get you some language for the removal of
Thank you.
the notification
Thank you,
of.
Lynette.
If
Bad.
the board can go
Correct.
ahead and change what we talked about today and send it to everybody so they can look it over.
Yeah, we'll
It'll
send it
still
out.
be in yellow, highlighted, so.
Yeah, and yes, and send it to us. Do you have any bylaws? I must have a dozen.
Oh, I've got everyone since I've been working with bylaws.
And I hope our historian here has them all.
I don't know if I have them all.
No, I'll have to look through mine and
It's
give you
not
what I
historian,
know.
it's archivist.
No, but my box is almost full.
Well, you want to get a second
I
box.
like historian.
I don't know.
There's a lot of history in this place.
Maybe
The
it deserves a
reason-
slash, historian
Yeah.
slash archivist.
The reason has is good there is because it's section 19.8 is or has been added.
All right.
May I use your executive bathroom,
Okay,
Brian?
we got that taken care of.
Journalist.
I've got it, yeah.
Changing commas and stuff.
And I normally check those things out.
So we have a little 5-minute break here. We'll take
They
advantage
don't,
of it
they
as
don't
well.
even use commas anymore.
That's
because
why they
my
more
daughter,
eyes.
who is in the English department, claims that I put too many commas, you know, but, comma, they don't use commas anymore.
Well, they do, but what I've heard is that it's loose now, it's where it used to be very strict, now it's very loose.
Yes.
Well, I like commas, I like commas, no,
I'm a comma person.
I like
I am
commas
too.
because commas states exactly what you're saying.
Yep.
Yes, and then you don't misread. That's right.
I'm a stickler for that.
And you know, now, formal letters, they've even changed that. You don't have to do 2 spaces after a period.
Oh,
You
I
only
know.
do one.
I know, no, I, yeah.
It's hard to break a 46-year habit, guys, so I
We
still
learned-
do 2
I'm doing
spaces.
We learned all these
I
things.
still do it that way.
I still do math in my head where my kids were using toothpicks and fingers and all this. My God, if we use fingers, and my kids are in their 50s, if we use fingers, then, I mean, they would have sent us out of the room. You just didn't use fingers. Mine is all in my head.
And how about no cursive? I can't believe that cursive.
I know,
They're bringing it back to
ridiculous.
us. They're gonna bring it back.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You wanna learn cursive writing, you go to Catholic school. That's where you learn.
Yeah, I want to
that.
learn cursive writing, but I want to go to Catholic school. I learned in public school.
Yeah, me too. I went to private school and I write very large with the cursive, and that's the way, because up on the top of the board, remember those ABCs?
Oh, yeah.
They're this large.
Yeah.
Well, that's how I write lots of, and then you go doot, 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 and you make the circles.
We gotta get one of those cards, probably not
We
eat that.
used to be, I mean, we had grammar in school.
They don't, oh gosh.
My favorite thing was the diagramming sentences.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
That's, I'll say it's
Oh, I
easy.
know.
Oh, they haven't done
They
that
know
for 50,
anything
they haven't
about
done
it.
that for 50 years.
And it's all because they only do when I'm away.
When I went to school, we were in
Yeah.
fifth grade, we knew the capital of every state in the United States. Now you talk to these kids now in the last 30
just
years,
spending a little
they don't
extra
even know
time
where
in
the states are located.
Oh, my
They have
gosh.
no idea.
One of the shows on the Fox News,
Yeah.
Waters, what is his name?
Yeah.
He was on the beach
We don't
during
show
spring
Fox.
break.
I
Fox
was
News
in
not showing
Chicago
He
for
was
about
asking
2.5
some of
years.
them, you know, about different countries,
Yeah,
well,
that's when I first
who
went
fought
through, back in
Revolutionary War?
1952.
I have no idea.
North and South Korea was the answer.
Yeah, I was
And I'm
there
like, what, how did they not teach
53,
these people history?
and part of 54.
Because it came to a point, when they started going toward the moon, when they started getting toward the moon, which was 50 years ago, so they said, oh, we have to learn math and science. And that's what they pushed, math and science. My husband taught new math. I- to
No,
this
when you
day, he
get
said,
that back.
I'm gonna show you at the time, I said,
Yeah,
no
when you
problem.
get that
I
back,
did very well in my head.
feel that.
I don't need new math.
But I'm still with the thought, school of thought, that how do you
Yeah, when you
know
get the package back, you can feel
where you
that.
are and where you're going if you don't know where you came from and where you started from?
We don't care. No.
I just don't get that.
Geography, I had
Drives me
geography in high school. In high school, my freshman year.
Something's gonna go.
And I had, in my senior year, I had real problems.
Before my
Real
surgery, I used
problems.
to
We read the
go a little more
North
often.
New York Times every day.
I got
That
through
was
2.5
the
hours.
class. Half the period we read that, and then the next half, people were picked by the teacher to give a statement about what they read. I'm teaching on
The news media has changed substantially these days, so I don't think I would want anybody to read some.
Oh,
I don't think they report.
the newspaper, oh, well, she's gotta be a Republican.
Not saying that.
You don't have to, you already stated
I'm
it.
a journalist, and so I don't appreciate.
I think,
I like to read the truth. If I want to read fairy tales, I will go to the library and go.
the newspapers are selling more and more. They were down in the dumps, but now they're up
Yeah,
top.
but Fox News is hurting.
Oh, yeah, they're dying.
I get the Sundays, I pay a fortune for the Sundays.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I
that's a
wouldn't
deal
pay
now
that.
and
I
then.
can't
I wouldn't
believe
pay
how
that for
much that pays.
advertisement.
You know, we
It's
canceled our
$6.95
Sunday
a
news
month
because it
for
was
the
never on
digital
time.
version.
It was 4 hours late, 5 hours late.
Monday, there's nothing to do with advertisement.
If you don't get a deal now, then they have a deal.
We have a
have a deal going on now. They have a
It
deal
did not get
going
there
on now.
409 o'clock in the morning now.
Okay.
Can you imagine?
I pay $6.95 a month for the digital version of Sun News to read who's been arrested, who died.
I don't know, I can't
And
even.
that's about
I read
it.
that through you, I think. You put it online, and I think that's how I read it.
And he has
$6.95 a month.
I like to
He's
be
got
there
the
one
other,
day.
he's been coming for 2
My,
weeks, and
my
he's still checking
grandmother's
every
paying
house.
for my next.
He drives down the next house, and, oh, no, they don't get one.
Netflix and
Four people in my street.
And Grace and,
It
Steve,
seems like he can remember.
what is it, Grace and, what is that? The series, there's a series.
Will
We
and
just
Grace?
signed up for the
No, no,
ones
no,
that, Warren County Independent, we just started doing that.
Oh, I got.
We just started this last week.
I've got a binge
I
watch.
like that.
You had to.
Let's take a look at least
The New
it's
York Times
pretty
and Times
expensive, isn't it?
posted two newspapers.
Yeah, you read that.
Go and pick
Wait, I want to read that, you
I
get
love to take
paranoid.
a serious
You have to kind of, you have to read the paper, yeah, independent to know what's going on in Conway.
That's
You
what you
do.
see my Facebook post.
Yeah.
I have the what's called TV, that's on my TV.
I know my mom, a sports TV, I watch Netflix so much.
Yeah, but it's,
If I want to go
My
online,
wife
I
was
would,
the tech.
I like all
subscribe in the first
the
place.
Yeah.
CBS, and then when they're advertising 4 times a year, when it seems
Always
like.
like,
I knew you were
oh,
gonna
you
pass
get
it up.
called till it's 2 hours past the due time.
We bring my
Feel
business
bad
back
weather,
there.
I can understand,
Yeah.
the printing problem up in Florida. This is every
Money
month.
on after his out, I want you to use the data for you to collect.
My mom makes it.
So good, Dan.
We have everybody back?
I think we're ready.
Somebody else on your side?
No, we're good. Mickey's not here. That's Mickey's not here.
Cameron's been on.
All right,
And let it
It
out.
was fun to
we
watch
can
the year.
continue on for number 13, new business. Nominations for the board vice chair.
I'd like to make a nomination.
And I'd like to turn this over to Bernie to make candidate nominations.
I'd like to nominate Darrell Eichhoff for vice chair of the board, and I'm going to give you just a very short little rundown on his biography here. He's been on the board a year and a half. Before that, he attended meetings, I don't know how long, maybe a year before that or maybe more. He has 29 years of experience in the Air Force, and he served as administrator and CEO, CFO of several different operations. In the private sector, he worked in the hospital industry, including hospital transportation. He's been a volunteer in Scouts, AARP, Neighbor to Neighbor. I know his wife. If he has any trouble, I can call her.
And her name is
Her name is,
Irish?
I'm not telling you her
Irish
name,
Ann.
but I'll give you the phone number.
Irish Ann, does that tell you?
And, but aside from all this, and I think you have his biography, so you knew all that already. Aside from all that, I think even beyond all that and beyond liking Darrell and trusting Darrell, I think Darrell will be good for Coast. And I don't know anyone who would be better. I think he'll do a great job. I think he'll work well with Rob. And I think when his chairmanship begins in 2 years, he will be a good leader of Coast, and I think he's dedicated to our mission. And seconds.
Second.
All in favor?
Well, we don't really.
Are there any other nominations?
We have
Is there any other nominations, right?
But I think we vote in June anyway, don't we?
We vote in June, and it's
Well,
by,
unless there's only one person, and then we could just default.
well, what's the bylaw say? It's in the bylaw.
I don't think it mentions in case there's only one nominee.
Well,
We need to add another officer's position.
Is there another
Sergeant at Arms.
nominee?
Yeah,
Kitty would be my
Just
nomination.
make them eat the parliamentarian.
Oh,
There's only one nomination, and you don't need to.
well, go ahead. That's general manager.
That's the chair's decision, I think.
Yeah, all right.
One of my goals is to, if Brian is going to be successful with his 4-year plan, he's going to need somebody who wants to stay in close contact with those funding agencies for 4 years. So one of my goals is to try to sort of figure out how to do the day-to-day work of chair and have whoever comes in as vice chair, if they're willing, begin doing the cultivation work that is going to be necessary with the funding agency / politicians, so that it's a 4-year, very consistent message.
Well, I would volunteer Darrell to do that, but if there's anyone that can do it, it would be Darrell.
I like to add that I've been very impressed with Darrell. He's obviously dedicated, he's at a detailed level, a lot of things, he's professional. I don't think we could have a better representative than Darrell.
Great.
Also, I have a track record of telling those people that they're assholes. You're all do that.
Oh, wonderful.
I know, sorry.
Well, I think it's your decision, Joe, if we vote now or later.
Is there any more nominations?
All right.
Board decision, really.
If there's no,
It used to be in here. Did we take it out?
There. No, ma'am, it's still in
Where
there.
is it?
I'm trying to find it now.
Majority number of directors, quorum, compliance with freedom, committees, board chairman, meeting of the committees, general manager's compensation plan, no.
That's important.
Directors can be-
If it's in there, I vote to suspend the bylaws, so we can vote on this again. The only reason I could imagine not to vote is if you
Where is
think
it?
sometime over the next
Page
month, someone else is
12.
gonna wake up to wanting it.
It's
Well, I
In board
tried to pull,
officers.
I believe the majority of the poll.
Section
of the
2.
votes. Where did you find it?
Section 2 at the top of page 12.
Yeah.
Election of vice chair every 2 years.
Yeah.
The vice chair of the board shall be elected by the board at the June meeting. Nominations shall be accepted at the May meeting. Election shall be by secret ballot by a majority of all board members in attendance or in participation by telecommunications.
Right, that was a big thing about that telecommunications over the years ago.
Mhm.
Well, if there's no further nominations,
You want to rescind the bylaws for that?
we send the board
In
bylaws
this case,
For that
Suspend the bylaws and vote,
for that.
mhm,
then we'll put them back in.
just in
I
this
move we
case.
suspend the bylaws for 10 minutes.
I second.
Second.
And
All in favor?
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against?
Joe said no.
Okay. There being none,
So chaos and anarchy reign for 5 minutes.
So do we need secret ballots? I move we elect Daryl by acclamation.
I second the motion.
Give a vote on it.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a
All
vote
those
on
in
it?
favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
All against?
Quick, put the bylaws back in.
The bylaws.
Nominations are closed and Daryl has been accepted as the vice chair.
When is the party?
And then we'll reinstate the bylaws.
Daryl?
I move we reinstate the bylaws.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We'll celebrate in July in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I,
That was,
for those of you,
some
I
efficient boarding
am
right there.
I'm not
That was
gonna be
fun to
in
watch.
Chicago. At the national conference, Daryl is gonna go, and Lynette is gonna go, and that's probably it.
Yeah.
The good news
I'm
for
gonna
the
go to the
board
annual meeting in October.
is we're saving $4,000 or $5,000 by not having.
Where does that mean?
Well, I'll go in your place if the Cubs are in town.
The Cardinals are playing the Cubs that weekend.
All right.
Daryl, I see a ball game in your future.
He's a Cardinal guy, right? Yeah, right.
All right,
Okay.
very good. So at this time, then I
Any new business?
turn it over to
No, you guys didn't give me out one
Chairman.
time.
That was our meeting.
Next meeting.
the next meeting.
Yeah, you can do that for a month.
Okay.
You gotta get
Put them on.
June 28th.
I tried to get rid of it and it didn't happen. He told me, he said, you have it for another month.
Okay, no problem. I'll come back and sign the papers.
Right.
Then we'll have all the papers.
There you go.
Right, hopefully we'll have them all.
Okay.
Okay, thank you all very much.
We do a motion to adjourn?
Okay. The, all in favor of what?
I mean, a
The
motion to
motion on
adjourn.
the
I
floor
move we
to
adjourn.
adjourn.
I move we adjourn. Second.
We have a motion, we have a
A
second.
second. And third.
Any discussion?
And third.
Being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.